Hello to all the amazing viewers of the Paranormal M channel. You have no idea how much I love what I do. Reading your comments, hearing your paranormal stories from around the world, and helping you sleep a little better. It honestly means everything to me. Thank you for sharing so many experiences with us, and please, keep them coming. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest videos. Now, let's dive into today's paranormal stories. Hey, thanks for listening. I've been sitting with this for a while, and I honestly don't know what to make of it. I manage this really old community hall in my town, the kind of place with scuffed wooden floors, dusty trophy cases, and that faint smell of old curtains that never truly goes away. My boss is my aunt, Mara, and she's worked with the building forever. She swears up and down there's never been anything creepy going on there. No stories, no haunted hall reputation, nothing. And for a while, I believed her. But a little over a year after I started, small things began happening upstairs in the lounge area. The biggest one, the one that keeps repeating like it's got a routine, is the TV turning on by itself. And this isn't some sleek little flat screen. It's one of those massive, ancient Panasonic projection TVs with a chunky speaker base built into the bottom. Heavy, loud, stubborn. It sits right near the entrance to the upstairs lounge, like it's stationed there. At first, it would flip on when I was leaving, and I wouldn't notice until later. Then I'd get a text like, "Did you seriously leave the TV on again?" And I'd have to apologize, even though I truly didn't remember touching it. After a while, it started feeling intentional. Like it would wait. Then it would turn on the second I stepped into the lounge, or right as I crossed the threshold to leave, the exact moment I'd be forced to see it. Not when other staff were around, not during busy events, just me. And the weird part? It never happens to anyone else. I asked around. I asked maintenance. I asked the weekend crew. Nothing. Mara's been involved with that hall for decades and says she's never had the TV do anything like that. I tried to convince myself it was a wiring glitch or a dying power button, and maybe it was. I really wanted it to be. But then something happened earlier this year that kind of cracked that explanation clean in half. Upstairs, my office sits beside a short little hallway that leads to the bathrooms. It's not even long, just a few steps, but it's always darker than it should be, like the light doesn't fully reach it. That hallway is the only place in the whole building that makes my stomach tighten for no logical reason. I've had weird experiences before in my life, enough that I learned a rule I've tried to live by. If you don't feed it attention, it usually doesn't push. So I keep my head down. I don't talk into the dark. I don't challenge anything. I do my job, lock up, go home. Most nights, that works. But one evening, I was locking my office door and I felt it. That awful sensation that someone is staring at you. Not a casual glance, not imagined. Like an intense, fixed stare from the bathroom hallway. It was so strong, I actually froze with my keys in my hand. Now, I have this EVP-style app on my phone, one of those ghost communication things. I'll be honest, I don't take it seriously. I mostly downloaded it out of curiosity, and sometimes I used it in the hall just to map out where the wiring hotspots are, because the building's old and the electricity does strange things. I wanted to know what a normal reading looked like in different spots. My office entry area usually reads low, almost nothing. That night, I opened the app anyway, more out of nervous habit than belief. The meter jumped immediately into the middle range, and then it generated 2 words, "Come closer." My skin went cold, my chest tightened. Every instinct I have said, "No, get out, now." So I ran. Not a calm, "let's leave" run. I bolted. I flew out of the upstairs doors and down the stairs, still doing that frantic thing where you're trying to be responsible while you're terrified. Locking side rooms as you pass them, slapping switches, moving too fast and dropping your keys once, catching them, almost tripping. I set the alarm, locked the main doors, and drove home like the rear-view mirror was going to show something sitting in my back seat. And then, when I got home, my phone rang. It was Mara. She sounded tense, annoyed, confused, all at once. She asked, "Did you lock up properly? Because the alarm just tripped." I told her yes, absolutely yes. I was sure. I checked everything like 3 times because I was already rattled. She said the sensors were triggered in a path, starting at the front entrance, then up the stairs, then into the upstairs lounge. Like something had come in after I left, and walked right back up to where I'd been. She insisted I go back and check. I didn't want to. I felt sick even thinking about it. But I did. And when I got there, everything was exactly how I'd left it. Every lock, every door, secure. So the only explanation that made sense to my brain in that moment, as much as I hated it, was this. Whatever I felt upstairs followed me as I ran out. It waited until I was gone. And then it moved back through the building and triggered the alarms on its way upstairs. That's the part I can't shake. Because usually, the weird stuff is subtle, annoying, like the old TV turning on. But after that night, after I'd opened the door to communicating, even in the smallest way, it felt like the presence got stronger, like it realized I could notice it. Since then, I've gone back to ignoring it. I don't use the app anymore. I don't react to the TV. I don't talk about it in the building. But I still get the sense sometimes that it's trying to pull my attention back, like it's waiting for me to slip and acknowledge it again. And I don't know why. People always say, maybe it wants to tell you something. But what I felt wasn't curious or sad. It wasn't gentle. It felt wrong. It felt like something that wanted me closer for a reason that wasn't good for me. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. Have you ever had something like this happen? Something that only seems to happen to one person? And if you have, what did you do? Because I'm not trying to be brave here. I'm just trying to do my job and not invite something dangerous into my life. Hey, so this is one of those things I still struggle to talk about, because the second you say paranormal, people either get quiet or they get that look like you're making it up. And I'm not trying to convince anybody or win an argument. I'm just telling you what happened to me, the way I remember it. And honestly, I'm hoping someone out there will hear it and go, yeah, me too. The first time anything like this happened, I was really little. Preschool little. We were in this cramped apartment, and my older brother, Tyler, and I shared a room. He had the top bunk, and we were doing what kids do, wrestling, shoving, laughing too loud. At some point, he swung a foot, and I went right off the bed, and I should have hit the floor hard, but I didn't. It's hard to put into words without sounding ridiculous, but it felt like I got caught, like the air itself held me for a second. Like something grabbed me mid-fall and paused me just long enough that I didn't get hurt. I remember this weird, weightless feeling, like I floated for a beat before landing softer than I should have. I was probably 5. Maybe it was 94 or 95. I just know I was tiny, and I remember looking up after, confused, like, what was that? The second incident is the one that still makes my stomach tighten when I think about it. We'd moved into a house with my grandparents. More space, but somehow heavier, if that makes sense. My parents had added this extra room off the back. It used to be an old patio, and they built over it. There was a futon back there, a box fan, a little TV. So of course Tyler and I claimed it as our hangout room. We dragged in blankets, pillows, toys, made a whole messy kid nest out of it. One afternoon, Tyler suddenly froze and got that scared, tight look on his face. He whispered, "There's something in the blankets." And I remember rolling my eyes because he could be dramatic. I was like, "Stop lying." He wouldn't move. He just pointed. And where he pointed, the blankets looked wrong. Like the fabric dipped way deeper than it should. Like a pocket that didn't belong there. Almost like a dark little hollow formed inside the pile. I can still picture it. Not a normal shadow. More like the blankets swallowed the light. And because I was a stubborn little brat, I scooted closer, lifted my foot, and stomped right into it. Hard. Like, see? Nothing. The moment my foot hit, something wrapped around my ankle. Instantly. Not like fabric catching, not like a loose cord. It felt like a grip, firm, deliberate, like something alive closing around me. I yanked back and couldn't. Tyler screamed. I screamed. It was chaos. My mom came storming in, exhausted and furious, like, "What is wrong with you two?" She shoved the futon, tore through the blankets, flung pillows everywhere. Nothing. No animal. No object. No explanation. After that, we didn't play in that room again. Not because we were told not to. We just couldn't. I was maybe 8. Tyler maybe 9. Late 90s, give or take. Then there was the bathroom incident. This was still that same house. My mom was working long hospital shifts at the time, and my grandma traveled for work a lot. So some nights it was just my grandpa, my brother, my dad, and me. Their rooms were all down the hall, and mine was near the bathroom. One night I got up to pee. The house was quiet in that way houses get when everyone is asleep, like the walls are holding their breath. I'm in there, half asleep, and right as I'm about to flush, I hear a knock on the bathroom door. I go, hello? I'm in here." And right away, a woman's voice answers. Clear as day. It sounded like my mom, with that impatient but not angry tone. And I remember laughing because it sounded so normal. Like, "Really, Mom? I can't have 2 minutes?" I washed my hands, still smirking, and then it hit me like ice water. My mom wasn't home. My grandma wasn't home either. And the house, suddenly, felt too big, too dark, too silent. I didn't want to open the door. My heart was pounding. I stood there for what felt like forever, and finally, I cracked it open. Pitch black hallway. No lights, no movement, nobody awake, no one at the end of the hall, nothing. I bolted back to my room and slammed my door like something was chasing me. I didn't have a lock, so I turned on the light and sat with my back against the door, knees pulled up, shaking. I was about 11, early 2000s, and even now, decades later, I still have nightmares where I'm leaving a bathroom into a dark hallway, and I swear my body remembers the fear before my brain can even catch up. A few years after that, things got weird in a different way. My grandpa woke up one night convinced he saw someone moving through the hall, like a person walking past the doorway. He told my grandma, "Didn't you just see them?" And she was like, "See who? There's nobody." And he just shrugged, dead serious, and goes, "Must have been a ghost." My grandma didn't sleep after that. She stayed up, scared and wide awake, like she didn't trust the house anymore. Then about a week later, my best friend, Jules, was over. We were teenagers by then. She walked down the hall and did that double-take thing toward my grandparents' room. Not screaming, not dramatic, just a quiet, confused look. Later, I walked down the hall too, and as I was walking back, I glanced into my grandpa's TV room, and I saw what looked like someone standing there. A tall, dark shape. Not detailed, just a presence. I stopped. My skin prickled, and Jules immediately goes, softly, "You saw it too, didn't you?" I said, "Saw what?" She said, "That black figure. in your grandpa's room. And I swear my blood went cold because I hadn't told her what I'd seen yet. We both tried to laugh it off. Teenagers do that, you know. But the truth is, neither of us forgot it. Fast forward to adulthood. I went through a breakup, messy, painful, and around that same time my mom had a serious accident. She survived, thank God, but it shook everything up. We ended up moving to a different town and into a rental house that had apparently been empty for a couple of years. I moved in first because I lived nearby. The first nights alone, I kept hearing little things, like the house settling, except it didn't feel like settling. It felt like someone else was there. I'd get up, check rooms, nothing. Then I'd climb back into bed. One night, I woke up because I felt something tug my foot. I snapped awake, yanked my leg under the covers, heart racing, telling myself it was a dream. Then later, maybe minutes, maybe longer, something grabbed my leg and yanked me. Not a gentle pull, a hard, violent yank. It dragged me out of bed by my ankle and pulled me toward the doorway. I'm not exaggerating. I hit the floor and slid. I screamed and kicked and finally broke free, scrambled back, turned on every light in the room, and stayed awake until morning. That was the first night I felt truly unsafe in my own bed. After that, the house changed my sleep. I started having night terrors, deep, brutal ones. I'd wake up hearing screaming, but no one else heard it. I'd see dark shapes moving through rooms. Once, my mom admitted she'd seen something too, which almost made it worse, because I couldn't tell myself it was only me anymore. But even he started having moments. Misplaced items he swore he'd just set down. Footsteps that didn't match anyone's. That feeling like you're being watched when you're alone in a room. He'd always end it with, "It's just stress." Like saying it out loud could pin it down and make it harmless. The last big incident in that house was around 2020. He was playing video games and I was on the bed beside him. In my mind, I was awake. I could hear the game, see the screen, hear him breathing. Everything felt real. And then I noticed something at the window. A shape. A man-like silhouette. Wrong in that way shadows are wrong when they want to be seen. And it started trying to get in. I know how that sounds. I do. But in that moment, it wasn't a thought. It was a fact. Like my body understood danger before my brain could argue. I started screaming, swinging, kicking, trying to get away. My husband whipped around shouting, "What? What is it?" And I was yelling, "He's at the window. He's coming in. He's getting in." My husband ran to the window, flipping out, because to him it sounded like there was an actual man outside. He didn't see anything. He swears I was asleep. I swear I wasn't. But after that night, something got worse. The nightmares came harder. The air in that house felt heavy, mean, like living inside a bad mood you couldn't shake. I sank into the darkest depression I've ever had. I felt drained, like I was carrying dread in my bones. And then, this part matters. We moved. End of 2022, we bought our own place. We left a ton behind on purpose. Old stuff, junk, anything tied to ugly memories. Anything that felt contaminated with bad years. And my brother, Tyler, was no longer part of our day-to-day life. He'd become a really negative person, and eventually he ended up locked up. I'm not saying that to be cruel. I'm saying it because it ties into what he told us later. From the very first night in the new house, the night terrors stopped. Like someone flipped a switch. No more screaming in my sleep. No more dark figures. No more feeling watched. The air felt clean, peaceful, safe. I had one strange dream where someone was searching for me, and in the dream I was back in my childhood house, like my mind still had a string tied to it. But even that felt distant compared to what I used to live with. And then I found out my grandma was finally selling that old house. And I felt relief. Not sadness, relief. Because that place didn't hold warmth for me. It held tension. It held fear. It held too many nights where something felt off. Here's the part that still makes me uncomfortable. Before my brother disappeared from our lives, he admitted he'd done ritual-type stuff in his room when we were younger. Like he invited things in. I don't even know what to believe about that. Part of me wants to roll my eyes. Part of me remembers everything that happened and can't fully dismiss it. And when he got arrested years later, people said they found disturbing occult stuff in his apartment. Symbols, candles, things laid out like some kind of intention. I don't know if it was real, satanic anything, or if it was him being edgy and sick and trying to scare people. Either way, it makes my skin crawl. So, that's it. That's the story. I'm not asking anyone to worship the paranormal or agree with me. I'm honestly open to logical explanations. Sleep disorders, trauma responses, stress, the way a bad environment can poison your nervous system. Maybe my husband is right and it was stress the whole time. And if you've ever had anything like this, anything you can't easily explain, I'd genuinely like to hear it. Or if you have a grounded explanation that isn't cruel, I'm open to that too. I'm not looking for people to mock me. I'm just looking for perspective. And maybe proof that I'm not the only one who's walked out of a bathroom into a dark hallway and felt the world tilt the wrong way. So this happened about 6 years ago, back when I was still in school, and my bedroom was set up in what used to be our garage. My older cousin, let's call her Maris, was staying with my family for a couple of weeks. And the whole time she was there, we kept having these little ghost moments that were easy to brush off. Like, you'd hear a sharp knock on the wall, and we'd be like, yeah, okay, the house is settling, even if it didn't sound like that at all. Or we'd hear a weird scrape in the hallway and decide it was probably the cat, even when the cat was literally asleep on the bed. Once, I could have sworn I saw a woman's face in the bathroom mirror, just for a split second, but I convinced myself it was just a shadow and bad lighting and me being dramatic. Nothing ever felt serious. Until the last night Maris was there. We had school in the morning, so we went to bed earlier than usual. I remember being extra tired, that heavy kind of tired where you fall asleep before your head even sinks into the pillow. And then, somewhere in the middle of the night, I got shaken awake. Not gently either, like urgent. I rolled over, irritated and half asleep, ready to snap at Maris for messing with me. But she was still lying beside me, stiff as a board. And I remember reaching out and grabbing her arm like, "Are you kidding me right now?" No words. None. Just that awful silence. But then she looked past me, past my shoulder, and her face changed so fast it made my stomach drop. Like all the color drained out of her. Her eyes were wide, frozen, and I could see she was trying to breathe quietly, like making noise would make it worse. And before I even turned, I started tearing up, like my body already knew what I was about to see. The room was almost completely dark, except for a thin stripe of moonlight coming through the window. And because the room used to be a garage, the ceiling felt higher than a normal bedroom. Everything in there felt a little too open, a little too empty at night. I turned toward the corner of the room, and there were eyes. Not a face, not a shape I could really make out, just eyes, way too high up, like impossibly high, 7 or 8 feet from the floor, higher than where a person's head should ever be. They weren't glowing like in movies. It was worse than that. I just remember the pale whites catching that tiny bit of moonlight, like they were watching without blinking. I started crying instantly. Quiet crying. The kind where you're trying not to make a sound because you're scared it'll notice. And Maris finally whispered, barely audible, "What is that?" That's the only thing I clearly remember her saying. And this is the part that still makes me feel weird about myself. Because instead of running or screaming or doing anything that makes sense, I laid back down. Still crying, still terrified. I just turned away and pulled the blanket up and, like my body hit an off switch, I fell asleep. Like I shut down. The next morning, we got up for school and it was heavy. We looked at each other and I knew she remembered. She knew I remembered. But we didn't talk about it right away. We just moved around the house like normal people pretending nothing happened. Then, in the kitchen, right as we were about to leave, I said, trying to make it sound casual, like I wasn't about to lose it, "I had a really weird dream last night." That's when we finally talked about it. We compared what we saw, what we felt, what we remembered, and everything matched, except for one thing. To this day, Maris swears I woke her up. She insists she never shook me awake at all. But I swear it was her. We kind of laughed it off, because what else do you do with something like that? You don't want to sound crazy. You don't want to be the person who's dead serious about eyes in the corner at breakfast before algebra. But even now, years later, I still get anxious about that corner before I go to sleep. And lately, this is why I've been thinking about it again. My dog has started whining at night. Not every night, but often enough that it sticks with me. He'll stand there, tense, staring at that same corner, letting out these soft, upset little cries, like he wants to leave the room, but doesn't want to turn his back on whatever he thinks is there. And I always tell people I don't believe in ghosts. I still say that. But I also say, I've got a few stories I can't explain. And this is the one that never really left me. Because it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like something was there, just out of reach of the light. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you the way it happened, because even now, I'm not totally sure what to make of it. A few nights ago, 3, I think, I was riding with my Aunt Marisol on this quiet back road that cuts through a ton of trees. We weren't even going anywhere exciting, just heading home after visiting family. It was already getting late, like a little after sunset, and the sky had that deep blue look where everything feels slightly unreal. Then the car started acting weird. First a warning light, then this sharp beep, and suddenly the temperature gauge shot up like it was panicking. Marisol pulled into this small church parking lot that looked like it hadn't been busy in years. No other cars, no streetlights, just this wide stretch of cracked pavement and one side of it completely hugged by dense woods. Pines and underbrush packed together so tight it looked like a wall. We turned the car off because it smelled hot, like overheated metal. A minute later, she tried to start it again, and it wouldn't even cough. Nothing. So she called my Uncle Dwayne to come meet us, and while we were waiting, I got out just to breathe and stretch. And that's when I really noticed the woods. You know how sometimes trees don't just look like trees? Sometimes they look like a place you shouldn't stare into for too long? That's what it felt like. It was quiet in this heavy, pressing way, like the sound got swallowed the closer you looked. I took my phone out and snapped a picture to send my friend Tessa, mostly to be like, "Hey, this is creepy, right?" And when I looked at the photo, my stomach did this slow drop. Because on the screen, only on the screen, there was this pale, milky glow tucked between the trees. Not a flashlight beam, not eye shine, not anything I could explain. Just this soft, white shape, like fog lit from inside. And it wasn't there when I looked with my actual eyes. So, of course, I did the thing everyone would do. I aimed my phone at different parts of the woods to see if it was some weird lens flare. But nothing else lit up. only that one spot. And there weren't any lamps or headlights or reflective signs around us that could have caused it. Just trees. Just dark. My uncle got there, and after a lot of messing around under the hood, we ended up getting the car towed. We made it home, and I remember walking into my room and feeling this sudden wrongness. Like the air wasn't hostile exactly, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. I told myself it was just stress, just adrenaline, and I went to bed. The next morning is when things started lining up in my head in a way I didn't like. I woke up to knocking on my window. Not scratching, not tapping, knocking. 3 steady knocks like someone trying to get your attention politely. Then it sped up, rat-a-tat, fast and impatient. Then it stopped for a beat and started again from the beginning. 3 knocks, rapid knocks, repeat. And the creepiest part? It didn't stay in one place. It moved, like it was traveling along the window frame, then up higher, then to the other pane. I sat there in bed, frozen, trying to convince myself it was a bird or a branch. But when I finally worked up the nerve to go outside and look, there was nothing. No trees close enough, no loose shutters, no anything. And my window sits higher than most animals could reach without climbing, and the sound was so clean, so deliberate, like knuckles on glass. That night I tried to act normal. I did homework, I scrolled, I even laughed at a couple dumb videos like I could trick my body into calming down. But then, while I was at my vanity, a small bottle, one that was nowhere near the edge, just tipped and slid like it got flicked. A minute later, something on my desk shifted and dropped, and there was no reason for it. No breeze, no fan pointed that way. Nothing vibrating or shaking the furniture. I tried staying awake because sleeping suddenly felt like leaving the door unlocked. I dozed off a couple times without meaning to, and the last time, it couldn't have been longer than 10 minutes. But in that tiny sliver of sleep, I heard this sound, this horrible, tearing screech. Not like an animal, not like a person either. It was thin and sharp and full of anger, like something trying to force its way into the world. I sat straight up with my heart punching my ribs, and the room was still, silent, like it had never happened. Today was worse in a quieter way. All day I kept feeling these little touches, like a brush along my elbow or a cold press at my upper arm. Each time I'd whip my head around like, what was that? And there'd be nothing. At school I blamed it on nerves, on people passing in crowded halls, on my backpack strap, on anything. But it followed me home. And then, just a bit ago, I walked out of the bathroom into the hallway, and I felt a cold hand, cold like it had been outside in winter, rest on my shoulder from behind. It wasn't a graze. It wasn't air. It was a firm touch, like someone trying to stop me. I actually turned around and said, "Hey," because my first thought was that my uncle was behind me messing around, being annoying. Nobody was there. I let out this little yelp, half scream, half gasp, and I turned back toward my room, and I swear to you, I saw a shadow move down the hall toward my mom's room. It wasn't a normal shadow. It had direction, purpose, like it was going somewhere. And the thing is, my uncle's room is right behind that hallway. If he'd walked past me, I would have seen him. I would have heard him. There's no way he could have slipped by without me noticing. So now I'm sitting here telling you this, trying to keep my voice steady, trying to be reasonable, and my brain keeps circling back to that church parking lot, that wall of trees, that glow that only existed through my camera, and this awful feeling that whatever noticed me out there didn't stay out there. So, I want to tell you about the house I grew up in. My family lived there for about 16 years, and for most of that time, weird stuff was just part of the background. Not like every single day, but often enough that you'd stop arguing with yourself about it. When I was a kid, maybe 7 or 8, my mom would sometimes leave me and my sister Maya home for a couple hours while she finished work. And more than once, we'd be in the kitchen and the cupboard doors would start opening and closing on their own. Not a gentle creak either, like someone was deliberately doing it. Sometimes one door, then another, like it was moving down the line. One time it got so intense, I actually picked up the phone and called my mom at work because I didn't know what else to do. There's one moment I can still picture so clearly. This heavy marble paper towel stand, like a chunk of stone, the kind that feels cold even in summer, shifted, lifted a little, and then slammed down on the counter. And I need you to understand, that thing was so heavy we couldn't even lift it properly at that age. Not together, not without struggling, but it moved like it had hands. And then there's the missing things thing. Not the normal, where'd my socks go kind of missing. I mean, something will be in your hand, you'll turn for a second, and it's just gone. You tear the room apart, shake out blankets, check under pillows, get frustrated, leave the room to look somewhere else, and when you come back, it's sitting right there, on top of the bed, like it's been placed there to prove a point. Over Christmas holidays, when my cousins would come stay, the house felt even busier, louder, warmer, more crowded. But that's when I saw something that still makes my stomach flip. I was in my room and I saw what I swore was Maya, my little sister, run up the stairs and dart into the closet in the next room over. I called out like, "Maya?" and went to grab her, expecting a giggle or a, "What?" And the room was empty. The closet was empty. No one. Nothing. My grandma lived in the basement for a while too, and she had her own stories. She'd wake up thinking one of my little sisters was beside her bed, like trying to get her attention. Little footsteps, a shape, that feeling of someone right there. She'd speak, half asleep, and then realize the room was still and empty. And it wasn't just us. Friends would come over and casually say things like, "Do you feel weird in here?" Like they didn't even want to admit they were asking. Different people, different times. For some, it was my old bedroom. For others, it was the living room at night. And the basement. The basement was almost always the place people mentioned. Like the air down there had weight. But the most vivid, the one that sits in my chest even now, was in the middle of a normal afternoon. Bright outside. Not spooky hours. My sister and I were watching TV in my mom's room while she showered. Everything felt ordinary. And then we heard it. This laugh. It came from the closet. Not a little noise you could explain away. A real laugh. Clear enough that both of us snapped our heads toward the closet at the exact same time. We looked at each other, wide-eyed, like we'd both just been slapped by the same invisible hand, and we ran out of the room so fast I swear my feet barely touched the floor. My mom later told us we were imagining it, that our minds were playing tricks. But here's the thing. I know what it sounds like when you scare yourself. That wasn't it. That was something else. And it wanted us to know it was there. But then, life happened. Real life. Hard life. There were years where the house wasn't just a house. It held alcoholism. It held yelling and fear. It held things breaking, sometimes objects, sometimes people. I went through a long stretch of depression that felt bottomless, and there were times I genuinely didn't know if I'd make it through my own thoughts. And after all of that, the energy changed. It stopped feeling like a weird presence you could shrug at, and started feeling like something sour moved in and settled deep. You could feel it in your body. If you stand in the hallway with the living room lights off, there's this sinking feeling, like the dark is heavier there than it should be. And the basement? The basement feels like a dare. My mom has told me she's seen something in the corner of her room while she's sleeping, like a shape watching. She doesn't say it dramatically either. She says it in that careful, controlled way people talk when they're trying not to sound insane. And I believe her. I believe her so much that even talking to you about it right now has my heart going a little too fast. The reason I'm even telling you all this is because something happened recently that scared me in a different way. I don't live there anymore, but my mom and my two younger sisters, Leah and Sophie, still do. They're teenagers now. And the other day, my mom was home alone, doing laundry in the basement in the middle of the day. Normal, mundane. And then something touched her back. Not a breeze, not a brush of fabric. She said it felt like pressure, like a hand or a palm hot against her skin. And she panicked. She ran upstairs and out of the house, like her body decided before her brain did. And that's what's been sticking with me. Because this feels like escalation. Like it waited until she was alone. Like it knew she'd be distracted. Like it chose a moment where she wouldn't be expecting anything. We've always had this attitude of, don't feed it fear. Like, tell it to leave. Be firm. Don't beg. Don't act small. And honestly, that approach seemed to work most of the time. At least enough that we could live our lives. But this is the first time it feels physical, and it scares me in a way the cupboards and missing objects never did. I told my mom she should get someone experienced to come by, someone who knows what they're doing, not just someone who wants to play ghost hunter, someone who can walk through the house and read what's there without stirring it up. Because I don't want my mom down there alone again, wondering if something is going to put a hand on her back when her guard is down. And if I'm being totally honest with you, what scares me most isn't the idea of a ghost. It's the feeling that the house listened to us for years, like it learned our routines, and now it's testing what it can do. So, this is one of those things where, if I hadn't lived it, I'd probably roll my eyes a little. About a month ago, my wife, Mara, and I started having these insanely vivid dreams, like every single night. Mara's always been the dreamer between us. She gets night terrors sometimes, so vivid sleep stuff isn't exactly new for her. But me? I'm usually the guy who wakes up and goes, I slept, and that's the whole story. Except suddenly I'm remembering everything. Whole scenes, whole feelings, like my brain is filming movies and forcing me to watch the replays. Most of them were just annoying dream weird. Like one night I'm pedaling a bike down this steep hill chasing somebody, and no matter how hard I push, it's like I'm stuck in slow motion and they're gliding away effortlessly. Another night I'm trying to wipe fingerprints off the windows in our house, and every time I set the spray bottle down, gone. Paper towels, gone. And I keep marching back to the same cabinet under the sink like a fool, getting more and more furious, like I'm being pranked by an invisible toddler. But then a few of the dreams shifted into this darker lane. There was one where I noticed smoke curling out of our bathroom. I ran to grab the fire extinguisher, and by the time I got back, the whole room was just engulfed. Like fire climbing the walls, roaring, heat in my face. And I'm standing there thinking, why isn't the smoke alarm going off? It's the weirdest detail, but it's what stuck with me. This quiet, dead silence while everything burns. The next morning I'm telling Mara about it, half laughing at myself for dream panicking. And right in the middle of me talking, the smoke detector starts chirping. Low battery beep. Just that little, hey, you need to replace me sound. Not supernatural, I know that. But it hit me like someone timed it on purpose. Like my dream was tapping the glass. Then there was another one that messed me up more than I want to admit. I woke up in the dream, and there was this dark shape standing in the corner of our bedroom. not moving, just there, watching. And the worst part is it didn't feel like a quick nightmare. It felt like it lasted all night. Me lying there pretending to be asleep because in the dream, I was convinced if it knew I was awake, something would happen. When my real alarm finally went off, I woke up sweating, and I couldn't shake that feeling all day. Like every hallway in my house had an extra set of eyes. But the thing that really turned my stomach happened a few mornings after that. I had this dream 3 times in the same night. Same exact sequence. Someone is standing next to the bed, and they press a hand down hard against the side of my face, like a palm pushing into my cheekbone. Every time it happened, it scared me so badly I snapped awake. And here's the part I can't explain. When I woke up, I could still feel the pressure. Not like, oh, I imagined it. Like my skin still remembered it. The 3rd time I jolted awake, the room looked brighter, morning light. And I realized our son, Eli, he's 3, was in bed with me. Mara's usually up early, so her side was empty like normal. Eli was lying in her spot, wide awake, staring at me with this confused little frown, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. And before I can even say anything, he goes, in this calm little voice, "Whose hand was that?" Instant goosebumps, like my whole body tightened. I laughed, because what else do you do when your kid says something like that? And I went, "What do you mean, buddy?" I swear my stomach dropped. I asked him, "What hand?" And he points right at my face, right where I'd been feeling it in the dream, and he goes, "It was there." I'm panicking on the inside, but I do that parent thing where you force your voice to stay light, like you're narrating a cartoon. I'm like, "Huh? I don't know what you mean. Look, these are my hands." And I whip my hands out from under the blanket and do this goofy face like I'm trying out for a children's show. And that's all it took. He smiles like, "Oh, okay." And he leans in and asks for a hug. I hugged him, obviously. But inside I was thinking, did you just see something I didn't? Or did I bring something into the room with my own stupid dream? I didn't bring it up again after that. Not to him. I didn't want to plant anything in his head. And then last night, because apparently we're just collecting these moments now, Eli decides to casually ruin my evening. We're sitting on the living room floor playing with toys, and out of nowhere he goes, "Who is the black spiky man?" I'm like, "The what?" And he says it again, totally matter of fact. "The black spiky man." I asked him, "What man?" And he points toward the kitchen and goes, "In there." I tried to keep my voice normal, but I could feel my skin prickling. So I do the logical parent thing and go, "Oh, maybe you saw a shadow. Can you show me?" And Eli nods like this is the most reasonable request in the world. He takes my hand and walks me into the kitchen like he's giving a tour. He looks around for a few seconds, slowly, like he's scanning, and then he goes, "He's not here." And I'm like, "Oh, good. Okay. Must have been your imagination." And I just dropped it. Because what else am I supposed to say? Cool. Tell the shadow man I said hi. So now I'm sitting here trying to file all of this into a nice, neat box labeled coincidence. Maybe it's just stress. Work's been heavier lately, and when I'm stressed, my sleep is trash. Maybe that explains the dreams. Maybe the smoke alarm beep was just a smoke alarm doing smoke alarm things. Maybe the hand moment was my brain blending dream stuff with waking up and noticing my kid next to me. Maybe the black spiky man is just a 3-year-old being a 3-year-old because kids say unsettling things like it's a hobby. But here's the detail that started bothering me once I replayed the timeline. Right around when all this began, we went to a family christening, Mara's side of the family. After the service, there was this little get-together, and at the end they handed out party favors. Small gift bags with sweets and a little keepsake. In ours, there were these sugared almonds, which, gross, we tossed them the minute we got home. And these tiny prayer beads. Not expensive or anything, just a simple little set. And for some reason, Mara and I both took them out and hung them from the lamps on our bedside tables. Like a little decoration. Like, "Aw, that's nice." I can't swear on my life that the first night of the dreams was exactly the night we hung them up. But it was close. Close enough that my brain keeps circling it like a dog sniffing something strange. And maybe it's nothing. Truly. Maybe it's all just timing and stress and a kid with a spooky imagination. It gets hard to laugh it off. It just does. So, this has had my brain doing somersaults for the past few days, and I've got to tell someone who will actually listen. So, hey, thanks for being here. It started when I was 19, back when I was training like my life depended on it, because I was dead set on enlisting. I lived out in northeast Tennessee, and I had this same running route I did constantly. This long, straight stretch of road with wide open fields on both sides, a couple scattered barns, and barely any houses. It was the kind of quiet where you can hear your own breathing and the little gravel crunch under your shoes. Most days I ran early, like 6 or 7 a.m., but one day I'd planned to take a rest, and I don't know how to explain it other than I had this weird, stubborn pull all day long. Not hype, not discipline, more like something was tugging on me. Like, no, you need to go. So finally, later than usual, closer to 4 p.m., I gave in. I lace up, head out, and I'm a couple miles in, zoning out in that runner's tunnel vision. I look down at my phone to switch the song, and I swear to you, it's like a person just appeared in the exact spot my body was headed. I slam right into him. He goes down hard, and I'm instantly panicking, like, oh my God, I just destroyed an old man on the side of a rural road. I drop down, grab his arm, and help him up as fast as I can. I go, "Man, my bad, sir. I didn't even see anybody out here." He brushes dirt off himself and goes, "You're fine." But then he looks at me, and I mean really looks at me. His face, it changes in a way I still can't shake, like he's gone pale, like the air got sucked out of him. His eyes widen, and his mouth just kind of hangs open, and he looks at me the way someone looks at a nightmare they can't wake up from. I've seen people get startled. I've seen people get scared. This was different. This was pure, cold, gut-level fear. Then he sticks his hand out toward me, almost like he's reaching for proof that I'm real. I didn't know what to do with that. I kind of stepped back, awkward, and said something like, "Take care. Sorry again." And he just stood there staring as I jogged off, confused as hell, checking over my shoulder like maybe he was going to say something. But he didn't. I finished my run and tried to forget it. Except I never really did. Now here's where it gets unreal. Fast forward about 9 years. I'm in the Army now, been in for a while. I'm stationed closer to home than I used to be. I've put on a lot more muscle. And because of a religious exemption, I've got this full beard I keep groomed. I'm not the skinny kid I was. I'm a sergeant now, older, steadier, the kind of tired you can't fix with sleep. Holiday leave comes around, and I get this strong feeling that I need to go home. Not just, it'd be nice. More like that same tug from years ago. Quiet, persistent, impossible to ignore. So I fly into East Tennessee and stay at a hotel. A couple days pass, and one afternoon the weather is perfect. Early fall, that crisp air that smells like leaves and distant wood smoke. Nostalgia hits me hard. I keep thinking about the old place I lived near as a kid, and this guy my mom used to date, Caleb, still lives out that way with his kids. Around midday, I decide to drive over and say hi. We sit around talking like no time passed, catch up on life, laugh about dumb old memories. We even crack a couple beers just because it feels like one of those rare moments where you can breathe. And then, out of nowhere, I get the urge. I kinda want to go walk my old running route, I tell Caleb. Just for the nostalgia. He's like, yeah man, go for it. It's quiet in the exact same way I remembered. Fields stretching wide on both sides. The road just cutting forward like it never ends. A light breeze moves through the grass. No cars, no people, just that big, open silence. And I'm walking, thinking about how that road used to be my whole world. When suddenly, I get hit. Not like bumped, not like I tripped, like I got tackled. My body jerks and I stumble, and my phone flies out of my hand and skitters into the gravel. I'm stunned, heart thudding, brain scrambling for an explanation, because there's nobody around. I don't even have time to fully push myself upright before I hear a voice, right above me. My bad, sir. I didn't see anyone else around here. I freeze, because I know that voice. I know that exact line. I grab for my phone, my fingers shaking, and I hear myself say, automatically, like it's already scripted, all good. Then I look up, and the entire world tilts. It's a kid, 19, breathing hard from a run, earbuds in, phone in hand. Same height I used to be, same face I used to have, same posture, same everything. It's me. Not looks like me, not reminds me of me. It is literally me, years younger, standing there with that confused, apologetic expression I remember making. Because I made it. My mouth goes bone dry. My chest tightens like I'm about to have a panic attack. I try to say something, anything, but it's like my body forgets how to speak. All I can do is lift my hand toward him, reaching out without thinking, like if I can touch him, then maybe my brain will have something solid to hold on to. He looks at my hand, gives this small, polite smile, like I'm just some stranger being weird, and says, "Take care, sorry again." Then he puts his earbuds back in, and he runs off. And I'm just standing there. For maybe 3 seconds, maybe 10, time didn't feel right. I'm trying to force my mind to make sense of what just happened. Then I snap out of it and yell the first name that comes to me, like shouting a name could anchor reality. Eli! Hey, Eli, come back! And I take off after him, sprinting down that open road. But here's the thing. It's a straight road, wide fields, nowhere to hide, no turns, no cars that picked him up, no trees thick enough to swallow a person. And still, he's gone. Just gone. Like the road ate him. I slowed to a stop, bent over with my hands on my knees, breathing like I'd been dropped into someone else's life. I kept scanning the horizon, waiting to see him crest a little rise or hear his footsteps. Nothing. Just the wind moving through the grass. And now, every time I replay it, it feels like a dream. But it doesn't behave like a dream. The details are too sharp. The fear I felt looking at him was too real. And the part that messes with me the most? I remember that day when I was 19, when I ran into that bearded man who looked at me like he'd seen a ghost. I remember his face, and I swear to you, I was looking at my own. So, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm still a little shaken up telling this. Yesterday, out of nowhere, I got this sudden urge to check on someone's well-being. And I know how that sounds. But it wasn't a normal, I should text a friend kind of thought. This was sharper. Almost like a flash of certainty that if I opened Instagram, I'd see one of those black and white photos with a caption that's basically a goodbye letter. The only problem was, I had no clue who it was supposed to be. And I spiraled a bit. I actually went so far as to pull up a couple obituary sites for my city, those public death registries that cover the metro area. I didn't find anything, which wasn't surprising. I live in a huge Brazilian city, millions of people. So even if the feeling did mean something, what were the odds the exact person would even show up there? Those sites don't catch every single death, right? But the feeling didn't go away. My brain kind of latched onto this woman named Renata, someone who used to run in the same social circles as me back in the day. Renata had struggled with mental health for years, and a while back, maybe like 8 or 9 months ago, she just disappeared from social media completely. And here's the thing, if you're Brazilian, you get it. Social media isn't just social media here. It's like proof of life. Having zero digital footprint is unusual, especially when you've got a ton of mutual friends. So my mind went there. What if something happened? I checked. Nothing. Not on her profile, not on family members' profiles, not even those indirect little clues people leave without meaning to. It was quiet, but not in a scary way, just quiet. And I remember thinking, okay, she's probably fine. Maybe she's taking a real break. Honestly, good for her. And I want to be clear, I had no concrete reason to believe anything had happened to Renata. It was just my mind trying to hang this weird feeling on someone. Then today, I found out that someone I used to know actually died yesterday. Her name was Marcia. Marcia used to work with me years ago at an English school where I was a coordinator. She was the kind of person you remember, steady, friendly, that exhausted but still showing up energy. And the part that hit me hardest, she was a single mom with 2 teenagers. Just brutal. Really. She didn't even live near me anymore. She'd moved to the other side of the country and I hadn't spoken to her in a long time. Over a year, maybe more. We weren't close friends. More like former co-workers who shared a real place in each other's daily life for a while. So now I'm sitting there thinking, why did I have that feeling yesterday? A couple details make it stick in my throat. For one, Marcia and Renata, this might sound weird, had a similar vibe. Not identical, but enough that my brain could have been circling Marcia without landing, and just grabbed the closest match it could identify. Similar face shape, similar intensity, even a kind of similar presence. I keep wondering if my mind recognized something and just couldn't name it. Second, today I did the obituary search again, except this time on a registry for the region where Marcia had been living. And listen, I clicked the first link that came up, and there she was. First try. And I know that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but combined with everything else, it felt eerie. Then I learned she'd been taken to the hospital yesterday morning, around the exact time I'd gotten hit with that wave of dread. I keep trying to be rational about it. Like, yes, I've worried about death before. I'm a human being. If my partner is driving late at night, I get anxious. If someone I love gets on a plane, I'll have that stupid little knot in my stomach even though flying is statistically safe. That's normal fear. And then there's the one small thread that connects me to Marcia, which is so random it almost feels like a movie prop. Back at the school, she kept this fantasy-themed board game. She was a huge nerd about it, in the best way. The students loved it. When she moved away, she left it behind. Later, when the school shut down, I found the game packed away in a closet, and I took it home instead of letting it get tossed. Last weekend, my wife and I re-watched a bunch of movies in that same adventure fantasy vibe, and afterward I remembered the board game. I dug it out, threw it in the trunk, thinking I'd bring it to a couple students I teach privately sometimes. Just a harmless, practical little decision. And I swear, When I held that box in my hands again, it was the first time I'd thought about Marcia in a long, long time. Like my brain pulled her name from the bottom of a drawer. So yeah, that's the whole thing. No dramatic ending, no revelation, just this lingering question that I can't quite swallow. Was it just coincidence? My anxious brain throwing darts into the dark and accidentally hitting something real? Or is there, I don't know, some kind of strange human antenna we don't understand yet? I'm not trying to convince you of anything. I just needed to say it out loud to someone who might actually hear me. So, I grew up spending nearly every summer in Croatia. My family had this little house outside a seaside town, not right in the middle of everything, but close enough that you could smell the pines and the salt in the air at the same time. And every year, like clockwork, I'd show up, sunburned within 2 days, and fall right back into the same friendships like no time had passed. There was this tradition the older kids passed down to the younger ones. You know the kind. Half adventure, half proof you're brave now. We'd hike up into the rocky hills behind the village. It's not one single mountain, more like a long, rugged ridge that keeps climbing and folding over itself. Up there, there's a wide, open pasture. Goats or sheep sometimes wandered through, and an old stone hut that had been abandoned for ages. Shepherds used to sleep there overnight back when people actually watched their flocks the old way. The hike itself wasn't that bad. Honestly, it was the kind of walk you could do while joking around and throwing pebbles at each other. Except for one spot. There's this section where the path narrows and you have to shuffle along the edge of what's basically a deep split in the rock, like a ravine or a crack that drops a few meters straight down. And at the bottom there are these big, ugly boulders, the kind you don't want to imagine landing on. It isn't technically a cliff, but it feels like one when you're a kid and you can't stop looking down. That day it was 4 of us at first, me and 3 friends, and we decided we were finally doing the hike to the hut on our own. On the way up, we passed the house of another friend, Luca. We spotted him out on the terrace, leaned over the fence and shouted up like, "Hey, we're heading up to the old hut, come with us." He grinned and said yes, like it was the easiest decision in the world. He grabbed his shoes, came down, and joined us. Just like that. 5 kids, laughing, sweating, feeling like explorers. Everything felt normal. Completely normal. And then we reached that narrow part. I remember it so clearly because the air felt a little different there. Quieter somehow, even though nothing changed. We went one by one, kind of sidestepping along the rock. Luca was behind us. And then, out of nowhere, he screamed. I don't even know how to describe it without sounding dramatic, but it wasn't a normal scream. It wasn't "I slipped" or "I'm scared" or "I hit my knee." It was a scream that sounded like someone dying. Like the kind of sound your body understands before your brain does. A raw, animal, final kind of terror that went straight through us. We spun around and saw him fall. Just drop out of sight into that split in the rock. And the scream kept going until it didn't. Until there was this sudden, sickening silence after the impact. We froze. Every one of us. Like our brains refused to accept what we'd just watched. I remember my heart pounding so hard it made me feel dizzy. Someone kept saying his name, over and over, like saying it enough times would change what we'd seen. We crawled forward and looked down, but it was too deep, and the rocks below were twisted and uneven. No movement, no answer, nothing. We were kids, no phones, no way to call anyone, just those old little brick Nokias, and even then we didn't have them with us on the hike. So we did the only thing we could do. We ran. We ran back down the path like we were being chased, crying, shouting, tripping over stones, calling for help, not even caring if we fell ourselves. We didn't stop until we saw the first rooftops of the village. We sprinted past the gate, and I swear to you, my legs nearly gave out, because there he was, Luca, standing there with his parents, alive, calm, completely fine. I can still feel the way my stomach dropped when I saw him, like my body short-circuited. We just stared at him, gasping for breath, pale as sheets, eyes wide open like we'd seen a ghost. Because we had just seen him fall. We had heard him scream like he was dying. All four of us. The exact same scream. The exact same fall. The exact same awful silence afterward. For a split second, my brain tried to grab onto the idea that he'd somehow played a prank. But it didn't fit. You can't fake that kind of scream. You can't fake that kind of fall. And even if you could, how could he possibly be here already, without a scratch, without dirt on him, without even looking out of breath? His parents rushed toward us, alarmed, asking what happened, why we were crying, why we looked like that. And we just spilled it out, talking over each other, pointing back up the mountain, barely able to breathe. The adults didn't laugh. They didn't brush it off. They knew us. They could see our faces. They could hear it in our voices. That we weren't trying to tell some spooky story for attention. We were terrified. So the adults gathered people immediately and went up to that ravine. Their thinking was simple. Maybe it wasn't Luca. Maybe it was someone else. A tourist. Another local kid. Anyone. They searched for a long time. And they found nothing. No body. No injured person. No sign that anyone had fallen at all. And here's the part that still makes my skin prickle. While we were up there hearing that scream and watching him die, Luca was apparently in town with his parents, running errands, completely elsewhere, like it was an ordinary afternoon. To this day, people from that village still bring it up sometimes. Not in a campfire story way, but in that quiet, uneasy way people talk about something they genuinely can't explain. And the four of us who were on that path, we've never forgotten it. Not the image of him dropping out of sight, not the way the world went silent afterward, but especially not the scream. That scream stays with you. And the strangest thing is, we're not the kind of people who go chasing paranormal explanations. None of us were raised to believe in that stuff. Even now, I don't sit here claiming I know it was something supernatural. But I also can't pretend it didn't happen. If it had only been me, I might have convinced myself over the years that my mind invented it. Some weird childhood panic, a misheard sound, imagination running wild. But it wasn't only me. It was all of us. 4 kids, hearing the same scream, seeing the same fall, carrying the same shock in our faces when we reached the village. Luca's fine. He grew up. He's living his life. But in a way, it still feels like we lost him that day, even though we didn't. Like some version of him died in front of us on that rock, and we're the only ones who remember it. And every time I think back to it, the first thing I hear isn't my own voice or my friends shouting for help. It's that scream. That terrible, impossible scream. So, this is a little hard to talk about, but I'll try. My Lolo, my grandpa, passed away earlier this month. It was natural causes, and he was surrounded by family over in California. I'm here in the Philippines, and growing up, my grandparents were always doing this back and forth life. They'd fly home to see us whenever they could, then return to the States. They were immigrants already back then, but they still somehow kept one foot in both worlds. What's wild is, we're still living on the property they helped establish here. Like the land they secured years ago is the same place where we built our home. So even when he was far away, he still felt present in a way. In the walls, in the routines, in the "this is our family's place" feeling. He hadn't been back since around 2019. He kept saying he wanted to come home for good, like really settle here again. But the pandemic happened, and after that, his health just never bounced back. Plans kept getting postponed, then eventually, there was no more someday. The day he died, I didn't really show much. You know how sometimes you're numb first? Like your body is calm, but inside you're shaking. Everyone in the family was grieving, but I was quiet about it. I remember that night, late, already half asleep, just lying in my room when I heard it. A knock. Not a tiny tap. Not a "maybe the house moved" kind of sound. It was one solid knock, medium to loud, right on my bedroom door. It jolted me awake because nobody knocks like that at that hour. I sat up immediately, heart racing, and went to open the door. And there was no one. I stepped out into the hallway to check. Empty. Quiet. My younger brother was still awake in the next room, scrolling on his phone, so I asked him, "Did you knock?" He looked at me like I was weird and said, "No?" And I could tell he meant it. He was half asleep and annoyed in that genuine way people get when you wake them up with something random. I tried to shrug it off. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe the house creaked. Maybe it was just one of those things. But then it happened again. A couple nights later, my dad experienced it in their room. He told us he heard 2 knocks this time, 2 distinct ones, like someone knocking, pausing, then knocking again. The first time, he got up and checked outside the room, then even went downstairs thinking maybe someone was messing around. Nothing. So he went back up to sleep, and then it happened again, same pattern. The second set of knocks was softer, but still clear enough that he couldn't ignore it. Then, a day or so after that, my mom heard it too. She was getting ready, like dressing, doing her usual routine, and she heard a knock and assumed someone downstairs was calling her. So she called back, "Yeah?" No answer. She went out to check, thinking someone needed something, but everyone was busy doing their own thing, no one even near her door. And then, it came back to me. Just 3 nights ago, I was in my room with my boyfriend, Miguel, and our dog. We were watching a show, Netflix, lights low, totally relaxed. Our dog was lying there, calm, not even restless. Then we heard it. 2 soft knocks on the door, gentle, but unmistakable, like someone trying not to startle us. I froze. Miguel looked at me immediately like, "Did you hear that?" I didn't even answer right away because my brain was doing that thing where it tries to explain it before it lets you feel anything. I got up, opened the door fast, and again, nobody. Hallway empty, house quiet. Because I've lived in this house basically my whole life. I'm 26 now, and in all those years, I've never had anything like this happen. Not once. And now it happens, first on the day he dies, then again to my dad, then my mom, then back to me. I don't know what I believe. I'm not saying it's definitely something paranormal. I'm not claiming it's my grandpa for sure. But the timing feels personal. Like the house is doing something it never used to do. And honestly, I think what scares me isn't just the knocking. It's what it might mean. Like, is it a goodbye? A reminder? A sign that grief is louder than we think, even when we're trying to be quiet about it. I guess I'm sharing this because I don't know what to do with it. Has anyone else experienced something like that? knocking with no one there, especially after losing someone? And if you have, how did you handle it without spiraling? Because right now, I'm stuck between wanting an explanation and wanting to believe it was him, just letting us know he made it home in some way. So, recently I was talking with a friend about death, about people passing, and it brought me right back to something I don't tell many people. When I was 15, I lost my older sister, Maya. She died from an overdose when she was 29, and even saying that out loud still feels sharp, like it has edges. She was genuinely one of the best people I've ever known. The kind of person you just orbit when you're younger because she makes life feel bigger and cooler and safer all at once. I idolized her. She had this beat-up truck that she treated like a concert venue, upgraded speakers, bass you could feel in your ribs, and she'd let me sit there with her while she played music way too loud, rapping along and laughing like nothing in the world could touch her. To me, she was the definition of fearless. She had gone to rehab. She was trying. She really was. And then she relapsed, hard, and that relapse is what took her from us. There's a lot that happened leading up to it. Details I keep close, because some things just don't belong on the internet. But I'll say this. It was a shock that didn't just knock the wind out of our family. It rearranged us. About a month after she died, I had this dream. And I know people say dreams feel real, but this was different. It wasn't fuzzy or symbolic. It felt like she was there. In the dream, I was holding her, hugging her so tightly I could feel that familiar shape of her shoulders, like my body remembered her before my mind did. We were both crying, ugly crying, the kind where you can't even talk right. It was gut-wrenching, but also strangely calm underneath it, like something sacred was happening. And right before I woke up, I remember her pulling back just a little, just enough to look at me, and she said, really clearly, "I have to go now." I woke up sobbing, like I sat straight up and the tears were already happening, as if I'd been crying in the real world too. I don't even know why, but I got out of bed immediately and walked into the living room. It was still early, quiet house, dim light, that heavy stillness you get before the day fully starts. And my mom, Denise, was already there. She was standing in the living room like she'd been placed there, almost frozen. Her face was puffy, eyes red. She'd been crying too. We just stared at each other for a second, and it was like we both knew before we spoke. And then, at the exact same time, we asked each other, "Did you dream about her?" We both said yes. And here's the part I still get chills thinking about. We described the dream, and it matched. The hug, the crying, how real it felt. And then my mom said, "What did she say at the end?" And I told her. And my mom's face crumpled because she whispered, "She said that to me too. I have to go now." Same words, same ending, same wake-up, sobbing, same pull toward the living room, same moment of finding each other there. We didn't even try to explain it. We just fell into each other and cried like we were holding on to the only solid thing in the world. It was one of the most bittersweet moments of my life, because I never wanted to say goodbye, not really. But it felt like she reached for us, like she gave us something we didn't get to have the first time, a goodbye we could share together. And now, I'm older than she ever got to be. That's such a strange sentence to live inside of. There are days it hits me out of nowhere, like I'll be doing something normal, laughing at something stupid, and then it's like my brain remembers, she never made it to this age. She never got to see this part. I miss her. All the time. So yeah, I guess I'm asking you honestly. Have you ever experienced anything like that? Something that felt less like a dream and more like a moment you were given? Okay, this has been stuck in my head ever since it happened, and I still don't know what to make of it. I'm not saying it was definitely paranormal. Honestly, half of me is skeptical, and the other half is like, yeah, but what if it wasn't nothing? So this was a couple months back. We'd just had our little boy, Milo, and he was around 5 months old at the time, right in the thick of teething. You know that stage where they look so tiny and sweet, but they're also miserable and nobody sleeps? That was us. That day in particular was brutal. I'd been on baby duty for hours, rocking him, walking around the house, trying different bottles, pacing the hallway like a zombie. By the time night came, I was completely wrung out. And when you're that tired, your brain starts telling you stuff. I kept thinking I was messing everything up, like I was failing him, like I wasn't cut out for being a dad. Eventually, I managed to settle Milo down. The house finally went quiet. My partner, Tessa, was asleep, and I remember lying there thinking, okay, just sleep. Please just let me sleep. And that's when it happened. At first, it was this deep humming sensation inside my body. Not like a noise in the room, like something in me, like my chest and ribs were vibrating. Then it got stronger. It spread until it felt like every inch of me was buzzing, like my whole body had turned into a speaker and someone had cranked the bass way too high. Then I realized I could actually hear it too. Not just feel it, hear it, faintly, like a low electric drone. And right after that came this really unsettling feeling, like something was pressing against my mind. Like, I don't know how else to say it, like something was trying to force its way into my head, and I was fighting it. Not physically, mentally. Like I was trying to keep a door shut and something on the other side was pushing harder and harder. For a few seconds, 5, maybe 10, it felt like a struggle. Like I was thinking, no, get out, stop. And then suddenly, it was like I lost my grip, like the door gave way. And the moment it did, the vibrations surged. It wasn't just buzzing anymore. It was intense, like wind blasting through me, like my whole body was being shaken from the inside. And then there was sound, this high-pitched, chaotic talking. That's what it felt like a voice, but not in any language I knew. Just this rapid, sharp, almost squealing gibberish whipping around my head, like I was caught in some kind of mental whirlpool and the noise was circling me. I remember thinking, what is happening to me? And then, right at the end, everything cut through into one clear sentence, in calm, perfectly understandable English. You're doing a good job. That's it. Just those words. And the second I heard them, it was like something unclenched inside me. All the fear drained out. It wasn't just relief. It was this wave of calm that washed over everything. Like reassurance so strong it felt physical. Like someone had put a hand on my shoulder and meant it. And then, instantly, everything stopped. The vibration, the sound, the pressure. Gone. Like someone flipped a switch. I was just me again. Lying in bed, quiet room, no humming, no voice. Alone in my own head, fully in control. I've had sleep paralysis before, which is why part of me tries to file it under that. But it wasn't like my usual episodes. Normally, I'm asleep first and then I wake up stuck. This time it happened right as I was drifting off. And I've never had anything like a voice, especially not something that felt separate from my own thoughts. And sleep paralysis has always been negative for me. Creepy, dark, that awful dread. This was the complete opposite. It scared me at first, but the ending was weirdly beautiful. What I do know is this: those words stuck. They actually helped. Even now, on the hard days, I remember that sentence. You're doing a good job. And it still hits the same. And if it was a message, then it showed up at the exact right time. So I've been going back and forth on whether to tell this out loud, because once I say it, it feels more real. But I'm gonna try to explain it the way it actually felt, not the way it sounds on paper. I'm 22, I'm a Christian, and weird things have followed me for as long as I can remember. I've had dreams that later happen, like exactly happen. Sometimes it's years later and it hits me like a punch because the scene is identical, down to tiny details. I'll catch shadows in mirrors or reflections in storefront windows, even when I know no one's there. And I've heard people in my house, doors opening, footsteps, murmuring. Sometimes even voices that sound like my family. When I'm home, completely alone. And then there are moments that just don't make sense. Like a few months ago, I was in this little local shop and someone whispered my name behind me. My name isn't common either. My boyfriend at the time, Evan, heard it too. We both turned around expecting to see somebody we knew, and there was nobody. No one even looking our way. Nothing. I've got more stories than I'd like to admit, but the worst thing, by far, happened about 2 years ago at Evan's family place. It's out in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by this huge stretch of land, fields, woods, the kind of quiet that feels heavy. It was one of those nights where he had a few friends over. I'd been at work, and I was genuinely excited to swing by and hang out. Like, I remember driving out there feeling happy, normal, light. And then the second I pulled in, it was like someone flipped a switch in me. I got irritated, immediately. And not in a normal, long day way. I mean instant, sharp anger. Like it had been sitting there waiting. Which is not me. I'm usually upbeat, calm. I wasn't drinking, I wasn't high, nothing. Completely sober. But within maybe 10, 15 minutes, I felt like I couldn't stand being around anyone. So I went inside and laid down in a back room, thinking, okay, I'll rest for a second. Reset. It was around 9 p.m. I fell asleep, and then woke up feeling like I'd only been asleep a few minutes. My pant leg was pushed up a little, and I felt this pressure, like fingers lightly touching my leg. I jerked, pulled the fabric down, told myself I was half dreaming, and I grabbed a blanket and tried to go back to sleep. Then I woke up again. This time, it wasn't touch. It was that awful feeling of being watched, like the air itself is staring at you. I opened my eyes and expected to see Evan standing there messing with me, but the room was empty. Across from the bed there was this open closet. No door, just a dark cutout in the wall. And above it, mounted on the wall nearby, was this deer head that his family had up like a trophy. I turned my eyes toward the closet, and I swear my whole body locked. Because the closet wasn't just dark. The darkness looked thick, like it had texture. And then it started to move. This oily, smoky kind of mass, like black fog but heavier, was slowly spilling out of it. Not rushing, just emerging, like it had all the time in the world. And what freaks me out even more is I didn't feel like I could move right. I've never had sleep paralysis before, but that's the closest thing I can compare it to. Like my body was heavy and delayed, and my brain was screaming while my muscles wouldn't cooperate. I forced myself to look away, but that didn't help, because when I turned my head forward, I ended up staring right into the deer head's glassy eyes. And suddenly, I had this overwhelming certainty that it was watching me. Like it wasn't an object anymore, like it was aware. And I wish that had been the end. But it wasn't even close. I woke up again. Evan was standing there, checking on me. He looked confused, like, "Why aren't you outside with us?" And I don't know how to explain what happened next except to say, it didn't feel like me speaking. I snapped at him. I started yelling, telling him to leave me alone, that I didn't want him around, that I needed to be by myself. It was cruel. It was so out of character that part of me was sitting somewhere behind my own eyes, watching it happen, like, why are you doing this? Stop. Stop. It felt like being stuck in the passenger seat of my own body, watching someone else drive. He backed off, clearly hurt and confused, and he left me alone because he thought I'd had a rough day. I fell asleep again. Then I woke up again, and he came back, gentle, still trying to understand. And the moment I saw him, this wave of hatred washed over me so strong it felt physical. It was like someone poured something black and bitter into my chest. Every word that came out of my mouth was disgust. I remember hearing myself talk and thinking, that's not me. That's not how I feel about him. But I couldn't stop it. At some point, I got up and went into the bathroom and laid down in the bathtub, like curled up in it, trying to shrink into somewhere small. I felt wrong. My skin felt wrong. My thoughts didn't feel like they belonged to me. I felt split, like my body was there, but me was hovering just behind my face. And then something happened that still makes my stomach drop when I think about it. I fell asleep in the tub and woke up abruptly. And I sat up with this big, eerie smile on my face. I wasn't smiling because I was happy. I was crying, but my face was smiling like a mask. Internally, I was panicking because I didn't understand why my mouth was doing that. I felt trapped inside my own expression. And then, clear as day, this thought slid into my head in a voice that didn't feel like my voice. I could go into the kitchen, grab a knife, and no one would even know until it was too late. I need you to understand. I hadn't had thoughts like that since I was a kid, and even then it wasn't like this. This wasn't an intrusive thought that felt like anxiety. This felt planted, foreign, calm in a way that made it worse. The fear that hit me was primal, like my soul recoiled. I stood up, crying, and stumbled outside. The yard was empty. I couldn't see Evan or his friends. I just knew I needed to get away from that house, off that land, anywhere else. I got in my car and started it. I honked the horn over and over, hoping someone would hear me, but it was like the night swallowed the sound. Later, Evan swore he was back in the woods behind the house and had no idea how he didn't hear the engine or the horn. After a minute, I panicked and started driving down the long gravel driveway. And then, out of nowhere, I slammed on the brakes so hard the car slid, and I started screaming. Not crying screaming, rage screaming. I was yelling, I hate him. I hate Evan. He did this. I hate him. Over and over, like something was forcing the words through me, because I didn't even know what this was supposed to mean. I didn't know why I was saying it. I didn't feel like I was choosing any of it. Then it stopped. The rage drained out of me like someone pulled a plug, and all that was left was fear, pure, shaking fear. And I knew there was someone in the back seat. When I looked in the rearview mirror, I didn't see him. When I turned around, there was nothing. But it didn't matter. I knew he was there anyway, the same way you know when someone is standing too close behind you. I don't even remember deciding to go back. I just did, like the car turned itself. I drove back up and pulled behind one of the buildings. I got out and stood there crying, but I couldn't speak. It was like my throat had sealed shut. A few seconds later, Evan and his friends came running out of the woods, confused and alarmed. Evan came right up to me and looked at my face, really looked, and he said, quiet but certain, "You saw something in the closet." I didn't answer. "It made you think things that weren't yours," he said. I still couldn't answer. I couldn't even nod. I just stood there shaking. And then he turned to his friends and said, "I'm not answering questions. I'm driving her off the property. Follow me and pick me up at the end of the driveway." He put me in the passenger seat and we drove. And this is the part that messes with me the most, because it was so sharp and instant that I can't explain it away. The moment the gravel ended and the tires hit the paved road, right at the edge of the property line, it was like everything snapped off. The fear, the heaviness, the watched feeling, the anger, the wrongness in my body, gone. Like somebody rinsed me clean. I looked over at Evan and suddenly I felt like myself again, like the girl who'd been excited to see him, the girl who'd been happy on the drive in. And I remember sitting there thinking, how can it be gone that fast? How can it be that location matters? After that, I didn't go into that house alone again. I still don't. I don't go out on that land by myself. If I'm there, it's only with someone else, and even then I'm tense the whole time. Sometimes we still hear things, little things, enough to keep the memory fresh. For a long time, I told myself I sounded crazy. I didn't tell anyone, not my friends, not my family, because how do you say, I didn't feel in control of my own mind without watching someone's eyes change? But I haven't been the same since. I've leaned harder into my faith. I don't go anywhere without my cross now. And I know how dramatic that sounds, but I also know what I lived through. And the truth is, I'm tired. I'm tired of hearing voices. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Paranormal M channel. How was your day? Drop a comment below and let me know. I'm a little tired today, but the moment I sat down and got ready to share my spiritual experiences from around the world with you, I instantly felt better. Thank you so much for all your messages. Now, let's get cozy, put on our headphones, and dive into today's story. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Okay. I'm not totally sure how to start this, but I've carried it around for a while and I just need to say it out loud to someone who will actually listen. So, a bit of context. There's this old mountain spot people talk about, an old lodge that burned down ages ago. What's left is mostly brick walls, broken rooms, and these open edges where you can look straight out over the mountainside. People still hike up there and throw parties, raves, bonfires, whatever you want to call it. I'd heard vague stories after the fact, but before I went, I honestly had no clue what kind of reputation it had. If someone had told me it was the kind of place people had been whispering about for over a century, I might have thought twice. I got invited by this guy named Mason. Not a big name in the scene, more like someone trying to become one. He was talking about starting a collective, building a community, all that. I'd run into him a couple times before, so it didn't feel sketchy, just a random invite to a random night. The hike up took maybe an hour. You know how it is. Music faint in the distance at first, then louder as you get closer, like the mountain is hiding it until the last second. And when we got there, it was eerie, beautiful in a strange way. A hollow shell of a building, like it was holding its breath. Brick skeleton, blackened corners, empty windows staring out at the fog and the drop below. At first, the night was genuinely fun. Lights, people dancing, that feeling like you're part of something secret and temporary. I did take some stuff, more than I usually would, but nothing I hadn't handled before. I was pretty confident I could ride it out. Then, I wandered into this side room. No lights, like pitch black. And in the far corner, there's this one guy, alone, playing a single hand drum. A bongo, I guess. Just him and the sound. It didn't feel scary in the moment, not at first. I remember thinking, damn, he's actually really good. I stood there listening, barely able to make out his outline, just letting the rhythm hit my chest. But looking back now, I don't know. I get chills thinking about it. The way it felt less like music at a party and more like a thing happening. like the room was being tuned to something. Later on, I went back into the main area and sat down near a corner because I was coming up hard. My thoughts were sprinting. I figured I'd roll a cigarette and ground myself for a second. And that's when I saw the cat, just sitting there in the corner like it belonged. I leaned down, reached out to pet it, really clearly, like I could feel how real it was about to be. And then I looked up for a split second and it was gone. Not ran away, not hiding, just gone. That was the first time in my life I'd ever had a hallucination that clean. It freaked me out because it wasn't dreamy or vague. It was like something snapped into existence and then got yanked out again. I tried to laugh it off. I told myself, okay, you're high, you're tired, it's a weird place. Everyone around me was still partying like nothing was wrong, so I forced myself to keep moving. But then I looked up, and I saw something that absolutely broke me. I swear to you, I saw a man standing on a stage, like an actual stage that hadn't been there before, wearing a bright white shirt, holding a microphone like he was about to speak or sing. And the thing is, there was no microphone set up, no speakers, no stage. I'd been in that room all night. I knew what it looked like. This wasn't a maybe. This was my brain insisting something impossible was happening. From that moment on, nothing felt right. Not just I'm too high, but like the place itself wasn't neutral. Like it didn't want you there, or it wanted something from you. By the time morning rolled around, maybe 6:30, 7-ish, the fog came in thick. Not misty, not pretty sunrise fog, like someone poured milk into the air. We started hiking back down, and we lost the trail more than once, at least twice, maybe 3 times. It's hard to count because it felt like time was skipping, and both times we got properly lost, this stranger appeared. A guy named Elias, or at least that's what he told us, just stepping out of the fog like he'd been waiting. Calm, almost too calm. He didn't act confused about where we'd come from, didn't ask questions, just pointed us back, walked with us for a bit, and then disappeared again when we got to safer ground. The part that haunts me is how impossible it felt. How did he find us twice in that fog, on that mountain, at that time? It felt like the kind of coincidence that doesn't really feel like coincidence once you're living inside it. I wasn't religious back then, like, at all. I would have called myself practical, skeptical, whatever. But that morning lodged something in me. This feeling that I'd brushed up against something I didn't understand, and then something else had stepped in and made sure we left. And then, not long ago, maybe 6 weeks back, I'm in a shopping center and this older Dutch guy stops me. Polite, gentle, not aggressive, just looks right at me and goes, "Do you believe in God?" I said no, kind of awkwardly, and kept walking. But it stuck. It got under my skin for some reason. Then, about a week later, I'm getting ready to go out again, and I can't stop thinking about that mountain lodge, like it's looping in my head all day. That night, the rave we were going to got canceled, so we changed plans and went to the beach instead. I ended up telling a couple friends the story, people I'd never told before. Just laid it all out, trying to make it sound normal, trying to make it make sense. A few hours into the night, this random guy comes up to us. Asian guy, maybe in his late 20s or 30s. Not much English, but friendly. We chat a little, and out of nowhere he says, dead serious, something like, "I go Hellfire Club, very bad, make my soul go boom." Not haunted, not creepy, not bad vibes. He said it like he was describing an injury, like something had actually happened to him. And I just froze, because I hadn't mentioned that name. I hadn't even been thinking of it as a name anyone else would know. And hearing it out loud like that, on a random beach night, from a stranger who barely spoke English, made my whole body go cold. So yeah, that's it. That's what happened. I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. I'm just telling you I went to a place I didn't understand. I saw things I can't explain, and since then, it's like the world hasn't felt as simple as it used to. And honestly, sometimes I still don't know if I'm more scared of what I saw or of how real it felt. So, a little bit about us before I get into the weird stuff. I live in an apartment with my older sister Marissa and her husband Evan. Marissa's really rooted in her faith, not in a scary, pushy way. She just genuinely loves church, worship music, sunny mornings, that kind of thing. Me? I believe in God too, but I'm more free-spirited. I'm the one who collects spooky little trinkets, watches horror movies for comfort, and treats Halloween like a personality trait. We've always been opposites. Same mom, different dads, and we're 16 years apart, with me being the younger one. My mom used to laugh and say, "My girls are night and day." And yeah, I'm definitely the night. Okay, now the reason I'm even telling you this, for about the last year and a half, we've had these little moments that kept stacking up. At first it was easy to brush off, like knocking sounds coming from the wall by the bathroom or the kitchen. You know how apartments are. Pipes, settling, maybe something in the walls. Annoying, but not exactly paranormal, right? But then it started getting personal. The first time, I was in the shower. I clearly heard the front door open, footsteps, and then what sounded exactly like Marissa's voice, bright and casual, go, "Hey," like she'd just come home. So I hurry through thinking, oh, she's on break. I'll talk to her for a second. I get out a few minutes later and the apartment is empty. I told myself maybe she swung by quickly. She works like 5 minutes away, grabbed a drink, left again. Totally possible. Later, when she actually got home, I was like, "I tried to catch you earlier when you came in." She just stared at me and went, "What are you talking about? I didn't come home." And I was like, "Marissa, I heard you. I heard you walk in and say hey." She swore up and down it wasn't her. And the way she said it, no joking, no teasing, made my stomach drop a little. Because she wasn't playing. She was freaked out too. Then about 3 weeks later, it happened again. But this time, I was the one being blamed. It's around 10:15 at night, and we're all in our rooms, lights out, winding down. I get a text from Marissa. "Hey, what did you need?" I'm like, "What?" So I text back, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "Evan said you called my name." I literally sat up in bed like, nope. I hadn't said a word. I was scrolling on my phone in complete silence. I told her, "I didn't call you." And again, same feeling. Not dramatic, not funny, just this quiet, unsettled little pause where you're both thinking the same thing, but neither one wants to say it. Then another night not long after that, same kind of setup. Everyone's in bed, it's late, and Marissa texts me again. She tells me she sat up and said out loud, "What did she say?" Because she heard me call her name and say something else, like a sentence or a phrase, but she couldn't catch the rest. Evan, half asleep, was like, "Huh?" And she goes, "Ang, called my name. What else did she say?" And he's like, "She didn't say anything. I didn't hear anything." So Marissa texts me, and I just reply, "I swear to you, I didn't." At that point, it wasn't just maybe pipes anymore. Because pipes don't sound exactly like your sister. Pipes don't call your name when you're asleep. And then, a few nights ago, something happened that made my skin go cold. It was just me and Marissa home. Evan was out. The apartment felt normal, calm, cozy. We had the TV on low and we were just talking about something random. Our two cats were curled up and asleep nearby, and our dog was knocked out too, like fully relaxed, deep sleep. And out of nowhere, we heard this deep, guttural growl. Marissa is not someone who swears unless she's genuinely scared. She grabbed the remote, shut the TV off fast, and just looked at me with wide eyes and went, "What the hell was that?" And I didn't even answer right away because I didn't want to influence what she thought she heard. I asked her, "Tell me what it sounded like to you." And she didn't hesitate. She said, "It sounded evil, like an evil growl." When Evan called on his way home, she told him immediately. He tried to be logical, like, maybe it was a raccoon or something in the walls. But both of us knew. We both just knew. It wasn't scratching. It wasn't scurrying. It wasn't an animal sound you hear and go, "Oh, that's gross." This was the kind of sound that makes you stop breathing for a second. And Marissa told him, "No, that's not what it was. It didn't sound like an animal. It sounded angry." We've had smaller things too, like little puzzle pieces that don't make sense on their own, but together they start to feel like a pattern. One time, a cat toy ball rolled across the floor toward Marissa, stopped like it hit an invisible wall, then rolled back the other direction like it changed its mind. No windows open, no air on, nothing vibrating, just movement. Sometimes the pets will all just stare into the kitchen like they're watching something pass through. And our dog will sit up and do this low bark, then a growl, like he's warning something away, not playing. A couple times we've opened a cabinet and found small dishes neither of us recognizes, like they just showed up. Marissa and Evan don't know where they came from, and I don't either. It sounds silly until you're holding a plate you know you didn't buy. And I have this little lamp in my room that will turn itself on or off at random times. I've tried to blame it on the bulb, the switch, the outlet, anything. But it's inconsistent in a way that makes it hard to shrug off. So yeah, that's basically where we're at. I don't know what it is. I'm not trying to claim I've got some haunted apartment situation for attention. If anything, I'd love for it to be boring. But when you start hearing your sister's voice when she isn't there, and then she starts hearing yours when you're dead quiet, and then something growls in your living room with that kind of rage, it messes with you. And the more I've read, the more one word keeps circling back in my head. Something that imitates, something that copies voices. A mimic. And honestly, I hate even saying that out loud, because once you name something, it feels a little more real. Okay, so I've been debating whether to even tell this story out loud, because the second you do, you can hear how it sounds. But I genuinely want to know what other people think, because it's gotten to the point where we've run out of normal explanations. So I live in this apartment with my sister, Hannah, and her husband, Mark. Rent around here is unreal, so we're doing the teamwork makes the dream work thing, splitting costs, sharing space, helping each other out. It's actually been nice, except for the part where the apartment has started doing things that make you stop mid-sentence and go, "No, wait, what?" It started small, like sounds. There's this weird knocking noise that comes from the kitchen, but it's not consistent. It'll go quiet for days and then randomly happen again. The best way I can describe it is, imagine someone stirring a spoon in a glass mug. That little clink, clink, clink. At first we were like, okay, pipes, old building, whatever. But it's just oddly specific, like it has a rhythm. Then the voices started. And when I say voices, I don't mean muffled neighbors through the wall stuff. I mean we'll hear each other. Like I'll be folding laundry and I'll hear Hannah say my name, clear as day, from the hallway. Then I'll call back and she's not even home. Or Hannah will swear she just heard Mark talking in the bedroom, but he's in the parking lot. The creepiest part is it's never all of us hearing it together. It's always one person hearing it alone, which makes it worse because you're standing there like, do I trust my own ears right now? But the worst sound, the one that made our upstairs neighbor text us in all caps, was the banging. I'm not exaggerating when I say it sounds like someone inside the walls just hammering, like heavy, angry pounding. The kind of noise that makes your stomach drop because it feels too human. Our upstairs neighbor, Linda, has texted Hannah more than once like, "Are you guys hearing this?" And it's almost always super early, around 1 to 2 a.m. That's the time window, like it's on a schedule or something. And then there are the footsteps. This one is personal because it happens when I'm in the shower. I'll be rinsing shampoo out of my hair and I'll hear steps come down the hall, slow and steady, and then stop right outside the bathroom door. Not pacing, not passing by, just stopping, waiting. The first few times I tried to be rational. Hannah must be home for lunch, or Mark needs something. But I'd get out, wrap a towel around myself, swing the door open, and nobody's there. And they both swear it isn't them. And okay, here's the part where I know people are going to have opinions, because this is the moment that made me fully sit up and go, something is wrong. One night, Hannah and I were in the living room just talking. Normal conversation, nothing scary, nothing weird. And we have pets, so there are toys scattered around. This little cat toy, small, lightweight, just rolled across the floor toward Hannah's couch. Like someone gently pushed it. It stopped for a second, and then rolled back the way it came from. No AC running, no fan, no draft, no slanted floors. Our floors are level. And even if there was air moving, it wouldn't stop in reverse direction like it changed its mind. Hannah literally froze mid-sentence and just stared at it, and she goes, "How did that just happen?" And I'm sitting there, heart pounding like, I genuinely have no idea. The pets make it worse too. Then there's the smell thing. This is one of the weirdest ones because it's so specific. Back in March, I had a car accident. Nothing horrible, thank God. I swerved to miss a dog that ran out, ended up stuck in a ditch, and I called Hannah to tell her I was okay and that my uncle was coming to get me. We hang up. Fine. She tells me a little while later, she and Mark suddenly smelled my perfume strong, like someone had sprayed it right in front of their faces. It lasted a few seconds and then vanished. No reason for it. No bottle spilled. Nothing. And recently, we've started smelling cigarette smoke, like heavy, fresh smoke. Except none of us smoke, and as far as we know, neither do our neighbors. Hannah was the first one to smell it, and then it started happening to me too. It's the kind of smell that makes you automatically look around for a person. And the lights. Oh my God, the lights. I have this little galaxy projector light in my room, one of those that makes stars on the ceiling, and it will randomly turn itself on and off. But it's not random in the normal bad wiring way. It almost feels timed. Like it turns on right when I'm thinking, okay, I should go to bed. Like it's nudging me. And when I wake up, it's off again. Also, I've walked out of rooms, totally alone in the apartment, and found lights turned on that I know I didn't touch. We even had this lamp that started flickering and clicking on and off. We assumed it was a cheap lamp, so Hannah got annoyed and threw it out. Bought a brand new one. Nothing fancy, just a regular lamp. And a week later, it starts doing it too. She was so mad because she was like, "So I threw away a perfectly good lamp for nothing." She even put in a maintenance request. They came, checked the outlet, said it was fine, And yet, the lamp still acts up sometimes. And then there's just stuff moving. Not like full poltergeist, chairs across the room drama, but little things. Keys not where you left them. Small objects showing up in places that make no sense. You do that thing where you try to convince yourself you just forgot, until it happens again and again. Last week, I heard something that still makes my skin crawl. I was sitting quietly, and right by my ear, like right beside me, I heard this little sound like... Not a word, just a sharp, close noise. I sat there frozen, thinking maybe it came from outside. Maybe it was a bird or someone in the hallway, but it didn't feel distant. It felt next to me, like something leaned in and made a sound just to see if I'd react. And then this morning, this is what finally pushed me into telling somebody else. I took the dog out, came back in, used the bathroom, and then grabbed my keys because I needed to move my car. I closed the bathroom door, and I know I closed it all the way because we're strict about that. The cats are obsessed with shredding toilet paper like it personally insulted them. And my cat Miso, sweetest demon alive, loves pulling towels off the rack. Nothing like stepping out of a clean shower and finding your towel on the floor like a tiny crime scene. So I closed the door, fully, no question. A few minutes later, I walk back down the hall and the bathroom door is cracked open. Not wide open, just open enough to notice. Like someone didn't want to be obvious. Like someone just wanted to remind me, yeah, I can do that. And look, I know grief and stress and life can mess with your head, so I need to tell you this part too. We've had loss. Our mom passed away a few years ago. Hannah also lost her dad not long after. And I lost a cat I'd had basically my whole life, then another older pet the next year. So yeah, we've been through it. We're close though. Hannah and I are really different, but our bond is solid. And me? I'm the odd one out. I love creepy stuff. Horror, mysteries, true crime. I collect weird little oddities, old antiques, spooky memorabilia, the kind of things people side-eye you for. I also have a ridiculous book collection, like to the point where it's becoming a storage problem. I've loved reading since I was a kid, and it's my comfort. So part of me wonders if I brought some kind of weird energy into the space, or if our grief left a door cracked open, or if it's all just a series of explainable things that happen to line up in the creepiest way possible. But then I think about the footsteps stopping outside the bathroom, the voices calling when nobody's home, the banging in the walls at 1:30 in the morning that even the neighbor hears, that toy rolling across the floor, stopping and rolling back. And I'm left with the same question every time. What is happening in our apartment? And why does it feel like it's getting bolder? Hey, so let me walk you through this, because it's not just one creepy moment. It's years of little things that slowly added up, and I still don't quite know what to make of it. I grew up in the southern part of Tasmania, way out rural, like properly rural. The kind of place where you don't get random visitors, and the road leading in isn't even properly sealed the whole way. My parents have lived in the same house for about 2 decades now. They moved in when I was a teenager, and during those early years, my dad was often away. He was in the Navy, deployed for long stretches at a time. It was mostly just Mum, me, and the quiet of the bush. And the first time it happened, I was still pretty young. We were driving away from the house, Mum at the wheel, and I remember glancing back through the rear window toward the front yard. And there he was, a man, just standing near the front door, like he belonged there, like he'd been waiting. It made absolutely no sense. There wasn't a neighbor who'd casually wander over, and we didn't have visitors who'd show up without calling, especially not out there. I stared hard at him, trying to make my brain name him, place him, explain him. And then I blinked, and he was gone. I told Mom as soon as I could, and she just sort of brushed it off in that gentle, practical way she has. She said something like, "Maybe it was your dad checking in on us." I think she genuinely thought I'd imagined it, or maybe she didn't want to entertain anything stranger than that. But the thing is, I didn't stop seeing him. Not constantly, not every visit, but often enough that, as the years rolled on and I got into my 20s, I started to accept he was part of the house, the same way the wind rattling the gutters was part of the house. At first it was small stuff, things not being where I left them, the odd sound that didn't quite match the settling of timber. Moments where you pause and go, "Wait, did that just happen?" And then you talk yourself out of it. Until one day, I couldn't. I was in my mid-20s, staying there on my own for a bit. It was just me and the dogs, 2 of them at the time. One was a big male mastiff mix named Hugo, and the other was a little stocky staffy called Mabel. And they were loud, right? Like, aggressively loud. If a leaf fell wrong outside, they'd announce it like it was a crime. So I'm in the shower, and everything's normal. When I get out, I'm towel drying and half-dressed, and the bathroom has this frosted window that faces the path leading up to the front door. And I see someone pass the window. Not a shadow, not a vague blur that could be anything. An actual adult man walking by at normal speed, close enough that I could tell he was pale-skinned, had short dark hair, and was wearing a plain, long-sleeved shirt and dark pants. My stomach dropped because the dogs hadn't barked, not even once. That alone freaked me out more than the figure. I rushed to get dressed, moving fast, fumbling a bit, and it took me, a few seconds? I flew out toward the front door, listening, waiting for the dogs to lose their minds like they always did. Nothing. When I reached the big glass slider at the front, both dogs were there. They were staring outside, completely alert, but silent. Not growling, not barking, just watching like they were tracking something they didn't understand. And there was no one. No movement, no footsteps, no door closing. No place someone could have hidden in that time, not without me seeing them, especially out in the open yard. And there was no answer. After that, I stopped trying to talk myself out of it. Years later, more recently, I ended up living at my parents' place again for a while when I was doing my doctorate. Those months were long and quiet, lots of studying, lots of late nights where the house feels extra empty even when it isn't. One afternoon, I'm in my room staring at the line of novels on my desk. I'd been switching between books, undecided, running my fingers over spines, doing that thing where you want to read but can't choose. Eventually, I straighten them so they're neat, flush, and lined up. Then I go to the kitchen to make coffee. I come back, mug in hand, and one book has been pulled forward. Not tipped, not fallen. Pulled forward deliberately, like 3/4 of the way out, as if someone had hooked a finger over the top and tugged it. I just stood there holding my coffee, staring at it, feeling this odd pressure. Not threatening exactly, more like a strong suggestion. So I did something that probably sounds ridiculous, but in the moment it felt like the only polite option. I read that book. Like, okay, message received. And then, a few weeks after that, there was another moment. This one wasn't about objects or noises. This one was him. I was sitting in the kitchen dining area, focused on something, notes maybe, and I saw a man walk past me in my peripheral vision. Just the sense of someone moving through the space, right where people normally pass through. My brain instantly assumed it was one of my family members. But then I looked up, and everyone was still in the room the figure had supposedly come from. And there's no way someone could have walked past me from that direction without me seeing them earlier, without them having to pass my line of sight first. I felt this flash of shock, like my whole body went cold for a second. And then it faded. Because here's the weird part. I've never felt afraid of him. Startled, yes. Confused, absolutely. But not scared. I've never had the sense that he's angry or malicious or trying to hurt anyone. He feels more like a presence with a routine. Like he's passing through because he always has. And still, it makes no sense. This house is remote. It isn't ancient. We know there were only a couple of owners before my parents, and as far as we know, everyone connected to the place is still alive. There's no family tragedy we can point to. No obvious story where you go, ah, of course, that explains it. For years, Mom and I barely talked about it. It was one of those topics you kind of keep folded away because saying it out loud makes it too real. But recently, we did talk, properly. And Mom admitted she'd noticed something too. That the walking past moments, especially near the front of the house, seemed to be happening more often. And that's what's been sitting heavy with me. Because we always treated it like, well, he's not hurting anyone. Let him be. Don't stir things up. Don't mess with anything you don't understand. I've stuck to that. I don't play with spirit boards. I don't invite things in. I don't experiment. That's always been my line. But now I keep wondering, what if this isn't just harmless background noise? What if it's someone stuck in a loop, or someone trying to get attention because something's wrong? What if the increase means distress? And I don't like the thought of that. I just know I don't want to ignore it anymore if ignoring it means leaving someone, or something, to suffer. Okay, so I want to start by saying this happened a few phones ago, back when we were using this old, kind of clunky security system. And I still get mad at myself for not saving the footage properly when we upgraded everything later. Because we had it. We had actual video. And knowing that makes this one of those stories I tell when I need to remind myself, like, no, I'm not imagining things. So this was about 5 years back. I was at work, just in the middle of a normal day, when I got a motion alert from the backyard camera. Nothing unusual, at least that's what I assumed. But I opened the clip anyway, and I swear to you, there was this dark, smoky-looking haze, like a shadow, but thicker. It wasn't fully solid, more like a transparent black mist, gliding across the top corner of our garage, over the back patio, and drifting straight toward the back door. And the weirdest part? It didn't just fade out like a shadow would. It looked like it slipped through the side of the frame, like it passed into the wall near the door and vanished. At first, I tried to be logical. I told myself it had to be a trick of the light, maybe a small cloud shadow. But it was way too localized, too small, and it didn't match how the sun hit that area at that time of day. Then I thought maybe it was a bug close to the lens, out of focus. Except it didn't move like a bug. It moved like something intentional. Slow. Smooth. Almost careful. Still, I shrugged it off. Because what else do you do, right? Meanwhile, my mother-in-law, Marisol, was at our house watching our little boy, Jonah. He was just over a year old then, still at that stage where he'd cling to you like a little koala and fall asleep anywhere as long as he felt safe. About half an hour after I watched the clip, curiosity started chewing at me, so I pulled up the indoor cameras just to see if anything else looked strange. And I catch Marisol in the kitchen, smudging. Now, she's the type who'll do that sometimes. She's always been spiritual. If a house feels off, she'll open a window, say a prayer, light the bundle, do her thing. So seeing that didn't freak me out right away. I just remember thinking, okay, interesting timing. But when I got home, the second I walked in the door, she didn't even let me set my bag down. She goes, "Something happened." And I could tell by her face she wasn't being dramatic. She looked shaken, like she'd been trying to hold it together for Jonah's sake, and now she could finally let it out. She told me she'd been sitting in our recliner in the living room with Jonah kind of sprawled on her, his little belly against her chest, just relaxing. The recliner sat right beside the open doorway to the bedroom, so you could see part of the room from that angle. And out of nowhere, Jonah pops his head up, like something caught his attention, and he stares into that bedroom. Then he starts crying. Not fussy crying, hysterical crying. The kind that comes from deep fear. She said he went stiff and grabbed at her shirt like he was trying to climb into her skin. So she sits up fast, turns toward the doorway, and she swears she saw this tall figure. Like a person made of shadow. Somewhere around 6 feet, maybe taller. It was pressed against the door frame, like it was trying not to be seen, and it was peeking around the corner at them, like it was watching. She said she could make out the shape of a head and shoulders, and this part gets me every time. She said it looked like it had one hand on the door frame, like an actual person would, leaning around. Marisol didn't freeze. She stood up immediately, grabbed Jonah tight against her, and just let it have it. And she said the shadow didn't walk away. It just thinned out, like smoke sucked backward, like it evaporated into nothing. After that, Jonah calmed down pretty quickly once she carried him out of that area. But she told me her hands were shaking so bad she could barely light the smudge bundle. Still, she went room to room anyway, opened windows, prayed, smudged the whole house. So while she's telling me all of this, I'm standing there with that backyard video still in my mind, and I ask her, really casually, but my heart is pounding, "What time did this happen?" And she tells me, and it's the exact timestamp from the clip I got at work, the exact same moment. I didn't even say anything at first. I just pulled out my phone and showed her the recording. And the look on her face, it was like all the color drained out of her. We just stared at it together, then stared at each other, both of us realizing how impossible that coincidence was, because she hadn't known about the alert. She hadn't talked to me. She had no reason to be smudging unless she truly felt like something had happened. And I hadn't told her anything about the mist because, honestly, I hadn't even decided it was worth mentioning yet. That's the part that still gives me chills. That split second of proof. That moment where it wasn't just someone's story. It was two separate experiences lining up perfectly, like they were connected. And even now, I still wonder, why our house? What was it doing outside first? Why did it come in through the back, like it was sneaking in? And why would it peek around the bedroom door at a baby like that? I don't know. I don't have a neat explanation. I just know what we saw and how it felt. And I know, for once, I wasn't the only one. So, this is a true story from about 7 or 8 years ago, back when I was working security at this conservation area just outside the city. It was the middle of the day, bright, normal daylight, nothing spooky about it. I'm posted at the little gatehouse with a couple coworkers, and we're doing that classic standing around pretending we're busy thing. Then I see this one guy coming up the access road on a BMX, and I mean, he looked striking. He's completely shirtless, wearing black jeans and dark shoes, and his bike is black too. Like, everything about him is black. The whole vibe was intentional. He wasn't dirty, wasn't sweaty, didn't look roughed up at all. No tattoos, no scars, no sunburn, almost weirdly fresh. Skinny guy, maybe late 20s. He rolls right past the gatehouse, but instead of going into the entry lane like a normal person, he slips through the exit lane, basically bypassing the security arm like it's not even there. Just straight through, like he belongs. So I hop in my work truck and roll after him, because at the very least, I've got to get him turned around and back to the gate. I catch up a decent distance inside the park and pull alongside him, and I'm like, "Hey, pull over a sec." At first he ignores me completely, just keeps pedaling like I'm not even there. I try again, and eventually he stops. I'm talking to him from the truck window, keeping it calm, but he's immediately hostile, super belligerent, like I'm personally offending him by speaking. And then he starts saying this strange religious stuff. Not like casual, God bless stuff. More like intense, prophetic-sounding lines. I can't remember the exact wording anymore, but it was along the lines of warnings and destiny and messages, that kind of energy. He finally turns his bike around, still muttering, and I follow him out at a respectful distance just to make sure he actually leaves. We pass the gatehouse again. Yep, right through the exit lane again, like he's committed to using it now. And we head down the access road. And this next part, I swear, it's one of those moments where you just blink and go, is this really happening right now? Partway down the road, he stops, gets off the bike, faces the sun, raises both hands up like he's about to receive a signal from space, and starts chanting. Not yelling, but like rhythmic. And then he does this little dance, just a subtle hip sway, almost ceremonial. I'm sitting there in the truck watching him like, half amused, half confused, not quite sure if I should take it seriously or not. It was funny in a what on earth way, but also just unsettling enough that I wasn't laughing out loud. Then he stops like someone flipped a switch, gets back on the BMX, and rides off. No fight, no escalation, nothing. Just gone. None of us got his name. Nobody at the gatehouse recognized him. And honestly, if that was the whole story, I would have filed it under weird dude doing weird dude things and never thought about it again. But later, I went to check the gatehouse surveillance. We had 3 cameras, one covering the front access road coming in, one pointed at the exit lane, and one facing the rear stretch past the gatehouse. This guy should have shown up on all of them, except he didn't. Not because he avoided the cameras, he went straight through their view. He should have been right there, clear as day. Instead, every single camera glitched at the exact moment he would have entered frame. And the thing is, those cameras saw cars and trucks ripping through all day, way faster than a BMX. We never had them do anything like that. Not before, not after. We tried everything. Rewound it, checked timestamps, checked for corruption, checked for system errors, whatever you'd normally blame. But the end result was the same. No image of him, not even a blurry frame. So to this day, I can't explain it. I don't know who he was, where he came from, or why the cameras all decided to fail in perfect timing like that. All I know is, I followed a shirtless guy on a black BMX out of the park in broad daylight. And somehow, according to the cameras, he was never there. So, my grandma passed away in October 2022, and ever since then, I've had a few dreams where she shows up in this really comforting way. Those kinds of dreams feel like a gift, honestly. But I've also had these other experiences, like sleep paralysis or astral projection, where something tries to look like someone you love, and it's not them. And this one still makes my stomach drop when I think about it. I had fallen asleep on the couch with the TV on, like the kind of sleep where you're not even trying to go to bed. Then suddenly I felt awake. Not normal awake, more like my mind clicked on before my body did. I could see my living room, but everything looked kind of smeared and foggy at the edges, like reality had a bad filter on it. And that's usually how I know I'm projecting. I turned my head to the right, toward the far corner of the room, and I saw 2 figures standing there. One looked like my grandma. The other looked like my aunt Marisol. At first, my heart did that thing where it lifts, because you want it to be real. Even though they weren't totally clear, I heard Marisol's voice so plainly, like she was right there with me, saying, "Come on, come give your grandma a hug. She's been missing you." And without thinking too hard, I sat up, like I just got pulled by the invitation, and I started walking toward them. But the closer I got, the clearer they became, and the more wrong it felt. Because the woman that looked like my grandma didn't look like her anymore. Her eyes were too dark. Not like shadow makeup dark, like there was depth in them that didn't belong. Her face looked thinner, almost dried out, and there was this weight around her, this thick atmosphere that pressed into my chest. And it wasn't like a cartoon evil feeling. It felt like grief, like abandonment, like a loneliness so deep it had teeth. And that's what freaked me out the most, because my grandma was never like that. Even when she was sick, even near the end, she was still teasing people, still smiling, still finding some way to make the room lighter. This thing in front of me felt like the opposite of her spirit. So I stopped a few feet away, and I just knew, that sharp, clear knowing, that this was not my grandma. But here's the thing. I still felt so much sorrow coming off of her that it made my eyes sting. It was overwhelming, like standing too close to someone crying, except it wasn't sound, it was energy. And I thought, maybe it's confused. Maybe it's hurt. Maybe it's pretending because it doesn't know another way to reach someone. So I decided to hug her anyway. Not because I believed her, but because I couldn't stand the way that loneliness felt, like something that had been starving for a very long time. When I stepped forward and wrapped my arms around her, she was colder than she should have been. Not icy exactly, just wrong. Like hugging something that didn't belong in a living room. And I leaned in and whispered into her ear, as gently as I could, "I know you're not my grandma, but I'm hugging you anyway. I think you need it." And the second I said that, the second, everything flipped. She jerked back and her face twisted, and she started wailing like I'd stabbed her with words. Full-on screaming, sobbing, this raw, furious sound. "I am your grandma! How dare you say I'm not your grandma?" And then she grabbed me. And then, out of nowhere, a bright white light started flashing around us. Not like a gentle glow, like strobe flashes. Fast, sharp, filling the room. The grandma stopped mid-scream and snapped her head around, terrified. And Marisol did too. Both of them suddenly scanning the room like animals hearing a predator. They looked scared, like they'd been caught. And right as that fear hit their faces, I slammed back into my body. I was suddenly fully awake on the couch, heart pounding, breath shallow, mouth dry. The TV was still on. The living room was normal again. But the corner, the exact corner where I'd seen them standing, where my LED strip lights are plugged in, those lights were flashing bright white. Violently. Rapid flashes, like the room was taking pictures. And here's the part that messed with me. I didn't even have the LEDs set to white. They'd been on deep blue earlier. They were never on white. I grabbed the remote immediately, panicked, and kept hitting buttons. Off, brightness, mode, anything. And nothing worked. The lights kept flashing like they were ignoring me completely. So I unplugged them. The second I did, the flashing stopped. I stood there for a moment, just staring, hands shaking. Then I plugged them back in, and the LED strip didn't turn on at all, like it was dead, like it had burned out in that moment. And it never worked again after that. I told my friend about it the next day, and he just stared at me and went, "Nope, That is straight up poltergeist stuff, which did not help, obviously. But what really got me is this. I've had projection experiences before. Weird ones, intense ones, but never anything that felt like it bled into the physical world. And I keep replaying it, trying to make it make sense. Why did that thing react like that when I calmly called it out? Why did the white flashing start right when they looked scared? And why, out of everything in my living room, did the lights in that corner start flashing white like some kind of warning? And then die? I don't know. All I know is, I woke up to the same white flashing light I saw in that moment, and it felt like something stepped in, something pushed them out, and for a split second, my actual reality, and whatever that was, overlapped. And I swear, even now, when I look at that corner of the room, it feels different, like it remembers. So, I've always hesitated to talk about this because my dreams don't feel like the kind of spooky dreams most people mean when they say that. Mine are specific. And what really shook me is realizing that other people I've never met, describe the same kind of figure I've seen. A tall silhouette, a long coat, a wide-brimmed hat. And I know how that sounds. Trust me, I do. But I've seen him more than once, and both times the dreams had this shared DNA, like they were chapters of the same story. Okay, first one. In the dream, I'm with my family and a few friends, and we're having this little backyard get-together. Not fancy, just food, laughter, someone's music playing too loud. It's warm out, late afternoon, the kind of light that makes everything look almost golden. Our yard feels bigger than it is in real life, like it stretches further, like the dream is giving it extra space. And right in the middle of it all is this fence. Not on the edge of the property, no. It's built straight through the yard, cutting everything in two, like someone decided half the world didn't need to be seen. It's tall, made of old boards, and it shouldn't be there. But everyone else is acting like it's normal. They're chatting, passing plates around, totally fine. And I'm trying to be fine too, but I get this sick, rolling feeling in my stomach. Like the fence is wrong. Like it's hiding something that's been waiting. So I walk over to it. I put my hands on the boards. They feel rough and dry and a little loose, like they've been sunbaked for years. I look for a gap, but there isn't one. No knothole, no missing plank, nothing. And that makes it worse. I climb. I hook my foot on one of the cross slats and haul myself up, and as I swing a leg over, one of the boards cracks with this sharp, splintering snap. The sound is way too loud, like it echoes. And suddenly, I'm sitting on top of the fence, balanced there, staring down at the other side. And the whole mood flips. The ground over there is covered in insects, thousands of them, like a living carpet. Not just ants, not just beetles, everything. Legs and wings and glossy backs, crawling over each other in a constant, restless tide. And the light changes. The sunny sky I was just under. It's still above me, but on that side it's like a storm moved in instantly. Thick gray clouds, heavy and low. The colors drain out of everything until it's all cold, muted, almost colorless. Then the bugs start pouring through the crack I made. They spill through the broken board in a fast, urgent stream, like water finding a hole in a dam. And that's when I see him. He comes into view at the far end of the yard, rounding the side of the house like he's been walking there the whole time. He's tall, taller than anyone should be in a dream. Broad shoulders, long dark coat that hangs straight down, and that hat. Wide brim, the kind that hides his face completely, so all you get is shadow where a person's features should be. He's not running. He's not hurrying. He's just coming. Step by slow step, directly toward me. I scramble down from the fence so fast I nearly fall, and I sprint back to my family, shouting that we have to go, that something's wrong, that we have to move, now. And the terrifying part is, they actually listen. Like they can feel it too, finally. And then, there he is again, crossing the yard. The bugs are everywhere now, spreading, swallowing the grass. He moves through it without reacting, like none of it matters. Like it's part of him. Like it belongs. I can't see his face, only the hat's shadow, only that dark, impossible outline. And then I hear the front door of the guest house open. Not slammed, not forced. Opened, calmly, like he has every right. And right as the sound registers, right as my body tenses for whatever comes next, I wake up. But I don't wake up relieved. I wake up like I've escaped by inches. Now, the second dream, it's different on the surface, but it's the same feeling underneath. The same pressure in the air, like the world is holding its breath. I'm on the edge of a fjord, the kind you see in photos. Steep rock walls, dark water, everything dramatic and sharp. It's raining, not a gentle rain, but stinging sideways rain. Wind ripping at my clothes. The sea is violent, whitecaps smashing into jagged stones. To my left, a rocky slope climbs upward, scattered with moss and a few stubborn trees. To my right, the water stretches out, and across it a massive cliff rises straight up, like a wall built to keep something in. And there's a road running along the shoreline, slick with rain. I'm running on it. I don't even remember deciding to run. I just am. My lungs burn. My feet slap the wet ground. And when I glance left, I see movement on the hillside. Shapes. A pack of animals, 10 or so, big bodies, heavy shoulders. Not exactly wolves, not exactly bears, but something with that same power. They're keeping pace up there, matching me, and the moment I notice them, they start charging down the slope. And the fear that hits me is pure and instant, like my body understands before my mind does. Then, right ahead on the right, there's this church. It's Gothic, all sharp angles and towering stone, but it's unreal in scale. The spire rises so high it disappears into the gray clouds, and the building itself looks like it's grown out of the sea. Waves crash against its foundation. Tall, pointed windows stare out over the water like dark eyes. And the only way in is from the shore. I don't think. I just run straight for the entrance and push inside. The second the door closes behind me, everything changes. The storm sound dulls, like the world has been wrapped in thick fabric. The air is cold and still. No candles, no lamps, no warmth. Just that weak, ashy daylight filtering through the high windows, washing the white walls in a kind of sickly calm. The ceiling is impossibly high, so high it makes me feel tiny and exposed. Empty pews line both sides of the aisle, perfectly neat, perfectly untouched, like no one has sat there in centuries. And at first, I'm relieved, because the animals aren't in here. The chasing stops at the threshold. But then I look toward the altar, and I see him. He's standing near the front, off to one side by the last pew, like he's been waiting. Hat, long coat, that same dark shape swallowing the light around it. His back is to me, and for a second I just freeze, because my brain is trying to pretend it isn't real. But it is. I feel it in my skin. He moves. Not suddenly, not sharply, just turns, like a slow hinge. He pivots to the right, then again, lining himself up with the aisle. and he begins walking down the center toward me. Steady, measured, like he's practiced this. To my side, there's a dark wooden door, the kind that leads to a tower staircase. I bolt for it, pull it open, and I'm taking the steps 2 at a time, spiraling upward. The staircase is narrow and old, the wood creaking under my feet, and I keep climbing until I can't climb anymore. I end up in a tiny room at the very top, tucked under the peak of the spire. The ceiling angles inward so sharply it feels like the room is closing around me. There's a small window, and through it I can see the ground far below. Outside, the animals are there. They're pacing and snarling in the rain, circling the church like they're trapped by some invisible boundary, like they're furious they can't follow. I slam the door shut, and for a moment I just stand there, shaking, staring at the handle like it's the only thing holding my world together. Then I hear it. Footsteps. Deep, muffled, slow. Not on stone, on wood. A steady thump, thump, thump. Like a clock, like a heartbeat that isn't mine. It reverberates through the walls as it climbs the tower, each step closer tightening my chest. The sound gets louder, closer. Then it stops. Silence for half a breath, just enough to make me hope, stupidly, that maybe he turned around. And then there's a softer sound right outside the door, like shoes settling on the floorboards, like someone taking their time. I stare at the handle so hard my eyes ache. The handle moves. It presses down, slowly, like there's no rush at all. And right before it opens, I wake up. So I live alone. Just me, my dog Milo, and my cat Juniper, in this little upstairs apartment that always has some kind of background noise. Pipes ticking, a neighbor's door shutting, the heater doing its dramatic on and off routine. You know how it is. And my pets. They're like most animals. Every now and then they'll stare into a corner or track something with their eyes like they're watching an invisible tennis match. I've always told myself it's probably just sounds I can't hear, or vibrations in the building. I'm not exactly the "it's a ghost" type. Anyway, this happened a few nights ago. I made myself dinner, carried the plate over to the couch, and flopped down to eat while watching some random show. I've got this big L-shaped sectional. I sit on the part pressed against the wall, and the other section sticks out toward the kitchen without touching anything, so it makes this little walkway behind it to the rest of the apartment. Milo was already bundled up on the couch, completely wrapped in a blanket like he pays rent. Juniper was in the kitchen finishing her food. A couple minutes pass, and right on cue, Juniper starts her usual routine for attention. She does this thing where she stands at the back base of the couch, where I can't see her, and scratches the leather a few times like she's knocking on a door. Then she jumps up, acts offended I didn't roll out a red carpet, and demands pets. So I hear the familiar scratch, 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 and then this impatient little chirpy meow, like, "Hello, I'm here." I smile, I lift my hand, ready to give her the royal treatment, and I hear it again. The exact same scratching sound. Same texture, same rhythm, same place. But here's the thing. Juniper was already in front of me, like right there, eyes bright, paws tucked in, claws not even out, waiting for me to scratch her cheeks. Milo's head pops up from the blanket immediately, and Juniper freezes mid-demand. Both of them turn their heads toward the back of the couch at the same time, staring straight at the spot where that sound just came from. And they didn't freak out. No puffed up tail, no barking, no bolting away like something just hissed at them from the shadows. Just alert, curious. Like they were both thinking, "Wait, that wasn't you?" And honestly, that calm reaction was the only reason I stayed calm too. Because if they'd been scared, I would have been scared. But they weren't. So I just sat there with my fork halfway to my mouth, staring at the couch like it owed me an explanation. I'm used to apartment noises. I can rationalize most things. But this wasn't vague creaking or a distant bump. This was cat claws on leather, that specific dry little rasping scratch that you can't really confuse with anything else. And I could pinpoint exactly where it came from, right behind the sectional, in that hidden spot Juniper always uses as her, "Excuse me, I require affection," launch pad. I sat there for a while just thinking, trying to recreate it in my head, trying to explain it. Maybe the leather settled. Maybe something brushed against it. Maybe sound bounced weirdly down the hallway. But it was so perfect. Like someone, or something, had just copied Juniper's signature move. And before you ask, no, I didn't feel dread. No cold rush. No sense of being watched. Just pure confusion. Like my brain kept trying to file it away into a normal category and failing. Still, every once in a while, I'll be sitting on that couch and my eyes will drift to the back corner where that sound came from. And I'll catch Juniper staring there too, like she's waiting for the couch to do it again. Okay, so let me tell you something that's been sitting with me ever since I heard it, because it genuinely rattled me in a way I didn't expect. A friend of mine, Nabil, was the one who told me this first story. It happened in Morocco, in the small town where his dad grew up. His dad was about 7 years old when it happened. And now he's, I don't know, in his early 50s or so. But the way Nabil described it, you could tell this wasn't just some random tale people repeat for fun. This was one of those town stories that becomes part of the place. So when Nabil's dad was a kid, he used to play outside with this little girl named Salma. She was a couple years younger than him, and their families knew each other well. Neighbors, basically. Normal childhood stuff. Then one day, Salma had an accident. She fell into a deep hole in the ground. Like, not a little ditch, a real hole. And she got badly hurt. Depending on who tells it, it was her leg, or her arm. But either way, she couldn't just go home right away. So for a few days, she stayed with Nabil's dad's family while she recovered, and while the adults figured out what to do next. And that's when the strange part starts. The very first night she's there, they hear this sharp clattering on the roof, like something small but hard hitting the tiles. At first they think it's an animal or kids messing around, so the adults go up to check. Nothing. No one. No footprints, no kids hiding, no birds perched up there. Just a few small stones on the roof, like they'd been dropped from above. Except there wasn't any above. It's a roof. And then it happens again. And again. For 3 days straight. Not non-stop, but enough that everyone in the house starts watching for it. They try to catch it in the act. They check the street. They check neighboring roofs. They accuse kids. They blame birds. They even suspect someone's playing a sick joke on an injured girl. But nobody ever sees a hand throwing anything. Nobody catches anyone running away. The stones are only ever seen mid-fall or after they land. And here's the detail that makes my skin go cold even saying it. The moment Salma finally leaves to go back home, it stops. Just stops. Like a switch flips. Of course the town talks. At first it's just whispers. Did you hear what happened at the Bouzid house? But pretty soon everybody knows. And the rumor becomes this. When Salma is around, stones fall. People start testing it too, because that's what people do. They watch her pass by, they wait, they listen. Some are curious, some are cruel about it, but no one can explain it. No one finds a culprit. Eventually, someone connects it back to the hole she fell into. Like, what if it wasn't just an accident? So men from the town go to the place. They climb down or lean in with lanterns, something like that. And what they find makes the story take a darker turn. Candle wax, pooled and hardened in places, and strange red writing on the walls. Not like a kid scribbling, like someone actually meant it. After that, they fill the hole in, completely, like they're trying to bury whatever it was. And Salma, this part is told kind of carefully, like people still don't like saying it out loud. They call in an imam, not just to pray, but to perform a kind of spiritual cleansing, an exorcism basically, even if the word sounds different in an Islamic context. Nabil told me the village went quiet for a full week. Schools closed, shops didn't open, parents kept kids inside. Like everyone collectively decided, we are not going to tempt this. And then, it stops. No more stones, no more roof clattering, no more little rocks appearing out of nowhere around her.
So that alone is creepy, right?
But here's where it gets worse, because it didn't just stay as a story. A few days after he told me, I borrowed a book from Nabil's room. It was one of those old, slightly yellowed books that look like they've been passed through hands for decades. He said the whole bookshelf originally belonged to his great-uncle, so it had this dusty, family relic vibe. The book was in French, published in 1972, and it was about paranormal cases and theories. The title was Les Mystères du Surnaturel, and it was written by someone named Robert Tocqué. I wasn't even reading it because I fully believed anything. I was just curious, like, okay, if weird stuff happens, what kind of weird stuff has been recorded? And then I hit this one story. It's set in France, in a town near the coast, Arcachon, and there's a sanatorium there, the kind they used to have for tuberculosis patients. Long corridors, quiet rooms, that whole image. In this place, there's an older woman staying in one of the rooms, and the staff and patients start noticing something. Wherever she goes, little stones start falling nearby. Not crushing boulders, small rocks you could hold in your palm, but enough that it freaks people out. Then she leaves. A new patient moves into her room, a girl, around 17, and the same thing starts happening again. Same pattern. Stones appearing out of nowhere, falling around people, never quite hitting anyone. At first, everyone tries to explain it away. Drafts, loose gravel, someone playing tricks, but they can't find anything. They can't catch anyone. There's no source. And the most unsettling part is that the rocks aren't found stacked somewhere. They're only noticed as they fall. One day, when patients and workers are outside enjoying the sun, the stones start raining down again, right as that teenage girl comes out to join them. Like the air around her is the trigger. And then the exact same thing happens as in the Morocco story. When she eventually leaves the sanatorium, the phenomenon stops. So now I'm sitting there with this book open, and I'm realizing I've heard two stories. Different countries, different decades, totally unrelated people, and yet the details line up way too neatly. And these are the specific details that got under my skin. The stones only fell when the girl was nearby. The stones were never seen being thrown, only falling. They didn't really hurt anyone, almost like they were aimed to miss. And both stories were tied to a location, the hole in Morocco, the room in France. It sounds small when I list it like that. It almost sounds simple, but that's exactly what made it terrifying to me, because it wasn't chaotic, it wasn't random, it had rules. And when something like that has rules, something that shouldn't exist, behaving like it has a pattern, you start feeling like you're not just hearing a scary story anymore. You start feeling like you're brushing up against something that might actually be real. Okay, so I should probably give you a little background first, because none of this makes sense without it. My girlfriend, I'll call her Maya, She's had a rough start in life. Like the kind of childhood where the air in the house is always... Her parents split when she was young, and the fighting didn't really end after the divorce. If anything, it got uglier. Her dad would pull these manipulative moves that made Maya and her older sister feel like they had to compete for love, like he was trying to turn them against each other. And I swear, that kind of thing leaves marks on you, even when you're grown. And Maya, she carries stress differently than most people. She gets panic attacks sometimes, like the real kind, where your body feels like it's in danger even when you're safe. But what makes her situation different is what happens with the panic attacks. Ever since she was a kid, she's seen things. Not like little flickers in your vision, I mean full-on shadow figures. She described one that wears a brimmed hat, like this old-school silhouette that just stands there. There was another one she called the long-armed one, because it would be wedged in the corner of her room like it didn't belong in the geometry of the space. And then there was this woman-shaped presence that would peek out from her closet door, just barely enough for Maya to catch it if she glanced the wrong way. Sometimes it's not even a full body, it's just faces, like oval heads, big round eyes, a little open mouth, like a mask that doesn't belong to anyone. Once in a while she can sort of make out features, but most of the time it's just the idea of a face, like something trying to imitate what a human looks like. And here's the part that messed me up. When Maya gets really anxious, the shadows don't just stand there. She's told me they move. Sometimes they crawl. Sometimes it feels like they're coming closer. And she'll grab her stomach or her side and tell me it hurts, like pressure, like bruising from the inside. She's not saying, I imagined pain. She's saying, it hurts right now. I know how that sounds. I do. If someone else told me this a couple years ago, I'd probably nod politely and think, sleep paralysis, trauma, hallucinations, anxiety, all of that. And to be clear, I still think some of that could be part of it. But then, there was this one morning that didn't fit neatly into any box. Maya had a really bad night, panic attack, shadows, the whole thing. She finally fell asleep near morning, and the next day she texted me like, I don't want to scare you, but look at this. And she sent a photo of her thigh. There were scratches, not random, not like, oh, I must have hit something. It looked like a symbol, like a messy star shape carved into the skin, with lines that were too deliberate to be accidental. And that was the moment I remember thinking, okay, either something is happening that I don't understand, or her mind and body are doing something terrifyingly real together. Either way, it wasn't something I could shrug off anymore. Now, here's my part in the story. I'm a Christian. Not casually, not just in name. I mean, I really believe it. And I've had my own weird experiences too. Not seeing figures the way Maya does, but feeling presences. Getting sleep paralysis. That trapped feeling where you can't move and you're convinced something is in the room with you. At first, it scared me. Like full-body dread. But then it started happening enough that my fear kind of burned out. It turned into irritation, then anger. Like, not again? Seriously? And I don't know how to explain this without sounding dramatic, but I started fighting it back in the only way I knew how. I'd pray. I'd say the name of Jesus out loud, or in my head if I couldn't move, and tell whatever it was to leave. So when Maya and I started dating, I didn't want to push my beliefs on her, because she's not religious like that. She's more open to ghosts, spirits, that kind of thing. But I did start doing one thing. I prayed for her at night. Every night. And what's wild is, over time she started seeing them less. Not completely at first, but noticeably less. And I kept wondering, is it because she's happier? Because she's less stressed? Because she finally feels safe with someone? Or is it something spiritual? I don't know. I honestly don't. It could be either, maybe both. But we learned something else too. If Maya talks about the shadows too much, or even thinks about them too long, it's like her brain turns the lights on for them. She'll remember, and suddenly she'll freeze mid-sentence and go, "I just saw one." So we developed this rule without even saying it out loud. We don't talk about them, because talking about them invites them back, whether that's psychologically or spiritually, or both. And then tonight, we broke the rule. We were on a video call, just being lazy. We ended up watching a horror movie, one of those newer, creepy ones. And I did that stupid curiosity thing where I was like, "Are any scenes like what you've experienced?" And she paused, and she was like, "Yeah, actually." And once it started, it didn't stop. The conversation just spiraled. She told me more details. She even drew them, like little sketches on paper, showing the tall corner figure and the face shapes. And as she was drawing, she kept doing that thing where her eyes would dart to the side of her room, like she was trying not to look directly at something. At one point she laughed, but it was the kind of laugh people do when they're trying to prove they're okay. Then she got quiet and said, "There's one by the corner of my bed." And I could feel my stomach drop even though I couldn't see anything through the camera. Like the atmosphere changed just from her saying it. And I didn't want to feed it. I didn't want to turn this into a serious, fear-filled moment where she spirals. So I did something kind of dumb, but also kind of perfect. I was changing my shirt, and I said, totally, "Oh, does it want to watch me change too?" Maya blinked, and then she snorted, like really laughed. And she turned her phone toward the corner like she was introducing a friend and goes, "Just hanging out with my bestie." And I swear to you, the fear on her face loosened, like her shoulders dropped, like the room could breathe again. And she didn't say she saw it anymore after that. That moment made something click for me, because I've always believed fear is part of the fuel, whether these things are paranormal or whether they're manifestations of trauma and anxiety. Fear is what gives them weight. Fear makes them bigger. Fear makes them realer. So I started thinking, okay, how do I help her long term? Do we just never mention them again, because even talking about it triggers it? Or do I help her understand my faith, not as a lecture, but as a way of feeling protected, like truly protected? Or do we train her to meet them with annoyance instead of terror? Like, "Oh great, you again," instead of, "Oh my God, I'm in danger." Because I'll tell you this, part of why I'm not afraid anymore is because I genuinely believe God is with me. That doesn't mean I'm some superhero. It just means I don't feel alone. And if I'm not alone, then what is some shadow in the corner compared to that? It's like the way an adult doesn't feel threatened by a toddler throwing a tantrum. Loud, dramatic, scary looking for a second, but not actually in control. And when she finally drifted off, she looked peaceful, like genuinely peaceful. She's asleep right now as I'm telling you this, and I'm still here on the call, watching her breathe, hoping that tonight stays quiet. And I don't know what the shadows are. I can't tell you that. I just know what they've done to her, what they've tried to take from her, and how badly I want them gone. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Trying to protect her, trying to make her feel safe, trying to figure out whether the answer is silence, faith, laughter, or some mix of all three. But tonight I'll take the small win, because she's asleep, and the room feels calm. Hey, so I want to tell you something that still feels hard to say out loud, but I think I need to say it the way it actually happened to me. A while back, I ended up in the hospital after a suicide attempt. It got serious enough that they had to intubate me, something like 10 hours, maybe a little more, before I finally came back around. When I woke up, Everything felt muffled, like my brain was wrapped in cotton. And not long after that, I was involuntarily committed. I'm telling you that part first because I don't want you to think I'm glossing over the mental health side of this. I live with another condition too, the kind that can tip me into psychosis, especially depending on meds and stress. So yeah, that's part of the picture. But I also don't want it used as an excuse to dismiss what this felt like. When they moved me to the psych ward, the place was exactly what you'd imagine. Fluorescent lighting, slow footsteps in the hall, that weird mix of boredom and tension hanging in the air. And there was this person there. Her name was Celine. She called herself a witch, openly, casually, like it was the same as saying she liked hiking. She had this really obvious tattoo, like a pentagram or maybe a star in a circle, right where you couldn't miss it. What stood out was that she'd gotten furious at someone one day, not me, and I heard her talking about doing a spell. She never said who it was for, and the thing is, she was genuinely kind to me, like unexpectedly kind. So I assumed naturally that whatever she was talking about, it wasn't aimed at me. But then one night, I fell asleep and had this dream that felt different from the usual hospital dreams. In it, I kept seeing these calendar pages, like paper cutouts floating against this black background. And the dates on them weren't normal dates. They were years, way out there, like decades into the future. It was eerie because it felt like my mind was being shown something I wasn't meant to see. And then I went lucid. I remember that moment so clearly, like I woke up inside the dream and thought, wait, this isn't right. That's when I heard it. This laugh. That classic, exaggerated, movie witch kind of laugh. Hysterical, sharp, like it was echoing in a big, empty room. I couldn't see anyone, but it felt aimed, like something knew I was listening. That was the only truly weird thing that happened in the ward. Everything else, honestly, came after I got home. At home, I tried to brush it off. I kept telling myself, that was stress, that was medication, that was the ward. But I couldn't shake this creeping thought. What if Celine did something? What if I was wrong about not being her target? I'm agnostic. I used to be a pretty firm atheist. But after all this, it's like my certainty got cracked. Not replaced with faith exactly, just cracked open by fear and confusion. The first thing that ramped up was my sleep paralysis. I've had it since I was a kid, on and off, and it can get worse on antipsychotics. But this time, it spiked, like someone turned a dial. Nights started to feel like something I had to survive. And then there was this one night. I woke up, except I didn't fully wake up. You know that feeling where your eyes are open, but your body refuses to cooperate? I was stuck. And in front of me, standing near the bed, was this figure glowing this deep blue, somewhere between light blue and dark ocean blue. And it looked exactly like Celine. Same face, same posture, same everything. I know how this sounds. I do. But in that moment, with my body locked and my eyes wide open, it felt real in my bones. When I finally snapped out of it, I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, shaking. And that was the moment something shifted in me. Not into certainty, more like into, okay, maybe reality has more layers than I thought. Then, my dog got sick. His name was Milo. He was older, so seizures weren't completely out of the question. The logical part of me knows that. But the timing and the way things felt around it made me spiral. Right before we took him to the vet for the last time, Milo looked straight at me, and he winked. A full, deliberate wink. I froze, because he had never, not once, done that before. And my brain went wild with questions. Was it him trying to comfort me? Was it just some weird muscle thing? Or was it something else wearing his face for a second? The wink felt oddly gentle and deeply unsettling at the same time, like being comforted by someone standing in the dark. After he was gone, I kept hearing him bark for weeks, like a month, maybe longer. I'd be in the kitchen and swear I heard him from the hallway. I'd wake up at night and think, there, that's Milo. And then I'd remember. And then, one day, I opened TikTok, just mindlessly scrolling, and a tarot reading popped up. The person on the video suddenly said my dog's name, Milo. And then they said, in this sad, emotional voice, Milo is crossing the Rainbow Bridge today. And the location on the video? This is the part that made my stomach drop. Was tied to a place I used to live. Coincidence? Algorithms? The internet being weird? Maybe. But it hit me like the universe had reached through my phone and grabbed me by the collar. After that, mirrors started feeling wrong. Sometimes I'd catch something out of the corner of my eye, my face, but not quite, or a shift in expression that didn't match what I was doing. Sometimes it was comforting, like someone was close by. Sometimes it was terrifying, like I was sharing my reflection with something I didn't invite. And here's where I'm at now. Part of me wants to explain everything with sleep paralysis, grief, stress, meds, trauma. And another part of me, the part that still remembers that laugh in the dream, that blue figure with the book, that impossible wink, keeps asking, but what if there's more? So what do I do with this? How do I live in a world where I don't fully trust my own nights, my own mirrors, my own brain? Honestly, I think the safest thing I can do is stay grounded. Talk to my doctor about the sleep paralysis getting worse. Tell someone I trust when things feel scary. And keep reminding myself that feeling something intensely doesn't always mean it's supernatural. Sometimes it means I'm healing from something enormous. And if you're still listening, thank you. I just needed someone to hear it without laughing me off. So, I've carried this around for a long time, and I don't tell it often, because even now, it sounds like something I must have imagined. When I was 9, we lived in this mid-sized city where everybody kind of knew everybody, at least through parents, neighbors, that sort of thing. There was a boy a few streets over named Eli, and he was around 13. We weren't close. We'd nodded at each other, maybe traded a couple words outside our buildings, but he was older, doing older kid things. I wouldn't have called him my friend. One afternoon, he was riding his bike home and a drunk driver hit him. It happened fast. So fast, people said he didn't even have time to react. He died right there on the road. I remember feeling weird. Not cold exactly, just distant. Like it was sad in a way I understood with my head more than my heart. I went to school. I played. Life stayed normal. And then, almost exactly a month after the funeral, I opened my closet and found something that made my stomach drop. A stuffed toy. A little teddy cat thing, soft, worn, the kind of toy you can tell a kid loved with their whole life. I recognized it immediately because I'd seen it at the funeral. I remembered it being placed on his grave. I remembered the dirt, the flowers, everything. And there it was, on my closet floor, like it had always belonged there. I ran to my parents with it, shaking, trying to explain. They exchanged that look adults do when they think a kid is confused, but don't want to say it outright. Still, they took it seriously enough to bring it to Eli's mom. They told her we must have accidentally taken it home somehow, maybe in the chaos after the service. She cried. I remember that part. She held the toy like it was a piece of him. A week later, I opened my closet again. The teddy cat was back. Same scuffed ear, same little stitched smile, same exact toy. That time, I didn't tell my parents. I don't even know why. Part of me just didn't want anyone else involved. Like if I said it out loud, it would become real. After that, the house started sounding different. At first it was little things, soft tapping in the hallway, a faint shuffle like someone walking in socks. I told myself it was our cat, because that's what makes sense when you're 9. Cats knock things over. Cats run at night. Cats do weird stuff. But the toy started moving. I'd put it in the closet before bed, very deliberately. I'd close the door and even wedge a shoe against it, like that mattered. In the morning, I'd wake up and it would be on my pillow, or tucked into the bend of my arm, like I'd been sleeping with it for hours. And I know what you're thinking. Maybe I was sleepwalking. Maybe my parents were trying to comfort me without admitting it. I thought of those things too. But it didn't feel comforting. It felt insistent. Then the dreams started. At first, they were almost ordinary nightmares. Dark streets, headlights, the screech of tires. But soon Eli was in them. Always Eli. Pale and wet-eyed, like he was stuck halfway between crying and trying not to. In the dreams, he would point at the teddy cat and tell me over and over, "Don't be mean to him." Like the toy had feelings, like it could be hurt. He called it Pickles, which sounds ridiculous now, but in the dream, it felt deadly serious. He would make me promise to keep Pickles close, not to give it away, not to leave it anywhere, not to let anyone take it from me. And then he'd say something that made my chest ache even in sleep. He'd whisper, almost like he was ashamed to ask. I started dreading bedtime. I'd lie there staring at the ceiling, bargaining with myself. If I don't fall asleep, I can't dream. My insomnia started there, I'm pretty sure. My parents just thought I was going through a phase, or anxious about school, or staying up too late. I didn't know how to explain that I was scared of closing my eyes because someone was waiting for me on the other side. Eventually, time did what time does. When I turned 10, things faded a little. The toy still showed up sometimes, but I stopped checking the closet every hour. The hallway noises became background. The dreams thinned out. I started to think, maybe it was over. Maybe I'd finally grown out of it. And then it came back. Hard. But the dreams changed. Eli stopped asking me to pass messages. He didn't talk about his mom anymore. Instead, he showed up crying. Really crying like he was breaking apart. And he'd say I'd failed him. "You didn't do it," he'd sob. "You didn't do what I asked." And then the crying would snap into rage. He'd start yelling at me, calling me selfish, calling me a liar. I'd wake up to sharp noises at the window, like someone scraping a fingernail along the glass, or a pebble hitting it from outside. And after that, I couldn't sleep again. Not really. I'd sit up in bed listening, waiting for the next sound, my heart thudding like it was trying to escape. About a week into this, the teddy cat disappeared. Gone. Not in the closet, not under the bed, not in the laundry, not anywhere. I actually felt relief at first, this shaky, guilty relief, like a weight had lifted. That same day, in the afternoon, I got hit with this sudden, heavy sleepiness. It wasn't normal tired. It was like someone pressed a button in my body and I just collapsed into bed. And I dreamed. In the dream, I was running down our street, and behind me I could hear a bike chain rattling, tires skidding, someone breathing too hard. I looked back and it was Eli, chasing me, his face twisted, furious and hurt at the same time. He was shouting, "You're a bad friend. You should have died instead of me." Not could've, not maybe. He said it like it was a fact, like it was a correction the universe was supposed to make. I jolted awake, crying, and my parents tried to calm me down the way parents do, stroking my hair, saying it was just a dream, saying it would pass. But it didn't. Even now, years later, I still catch things out of the corner of my eye. A shadow shaped like a kid on a bike. A figure standing too close to the curb. Sometimes I'll turn my head and there's nothing there, but my body reacts like it saw something real. And here's the part that makes me feel stupid saying it out loud. Since all of that started, I've almost been hit by a car more times than I can count. Not once or twice, more like a dozen. Enough that it stopped feeling like coincidence and started feeling like, I don't know, like being followed by bad luck. Like the street is always just a little too hungry for me. I don't know what happened. I don't know why that toy kept coming back, or why the dreams felt so specific, so personal, like someone was trying to use my sleep as a phone line. I just know that sometimes I still think about Eli's mom holding that teddy cat and crying. And I wonder, if I'd told her what he asked me to tell her, if I'd said the words out loud, would any of this have let me go?